It's 7:30 a.m. on the 13th of August, 2025. Near Scarborough, Shoal, the U.S. destroyer USS Higgins holds a steady course on a lawful patrol. Radar lights up with fast-approaching tracks. Chinese warships and Coast Guard cutters loom from the haze, slicing across her bow. 5 short-horn blasts crack the air. Cameras roll. One wrong move turns warnings into collision, or worse, a crisis that could set the sea on edge. Allies listen on the net. Philippine fishermen scatter under water cannon arcs. Scarborough Shoal looks calm from the sky, a ring of reef, shallow waters, and fishing boats dotting the horizon. But beneath that calm lies a constant struggle. Just 120 nautical miles from Luzon, this area is inside the Philippines' exclusive economic zone, confirmed by an international court ruling in 2016. Yet China claims it as its own, building a presence with warships, Coast Guard cutters, and steel-hulled militia boats. Into this contested space sails USS Higgins, a U.S. Navy destroyer. Her mission is simple in words but heavy in meaning. Show freedom of navigation, protect Philippine rights, and remind the region that seas remain open. For Washington, this is about credibility. If the U.S. hesitates here, allies will wonder if American commitments are still strong. If things go wrong, a single ramming or a miscalculated shot could spark a crisis that drags the region toward conflict. On this morning, Higgins carries more than missiles and radar. She carries expectations of seafarers who need safe waters, of partners who rely on U.S. presence, and of a crew who know that restraint can be just as powerful as firepower. The rules are tight. Avoid escalation. Defend only if directly threatened. Follow international collision regulations. The ship's cameras capture every moment because evidence matters as much as endurance. Meanwhile, China's play is about image and control. Their warships cut across the shoal to show dominance. Coast Guard cutters unleash high-pressure water cannons on Filipino fishermen, forcing them back. Propaganda crews film the scenes to broadcast strength. Each side is performing, but the risks are real. One slip changes theater into tragedy. And here's where you come in. If you were standing on Higgins's bridge, would you hold course against the pressure or turn away to ease the standoff? Comment 1 to stay steady, or 9 to change course. 8:05 a.m. The South China Sea looks calm, but tension builds fast. On USS Higgins, the watch team fixes on radar contacts. Multiple Chinese ships pushing toward the shoal. A planned Type O-52D destroyer suddenly cuts across Higgins' bow at less than 1,000 yards, throwing spray high. The U.S. bridge reacts instantly. 5 short-horn blasts. The universal danger signal. Sailors tense, but the course holds. Radio static crackles. Mandarin, you are entering Chinese waters. Leave immediately. Calm English replies, we are operating in international waters. Both know the exchange is recorded. Cameras and mics track everything. Documentation here is as decisive as weapons. 8:30. The Chinese Coast Guard makes its move. A Zhaotou-class cutter, 12,000 tons of steel, surges toward Filipino fishing boats. Water cannons roar, battering the small wooden hulls. From Higgins Bridge, the scene is plain. Beijing isn't only confronting Washington, it is intimidating Manila's citizens. 9:15. The pressure escalates. A planned Type 54-ampere frigate swings close, its wake slamming into Higgins' side. Officers grip their consoles, but the helm stays steady. Restraint is a tactic. A sudden turn could look like retreat. A push forward risks collision. Neither serves U.S. interest. The crew's training holds steady hands, steady eyes, steady will. Support looms above. A P-8-ampere Poseidon patrol plane circles, relaying updates to Pacific Command. Higher still, an MQ-4C Triton drone streams video. China plays to its cameras, broadcasting defiance. The U.S. gathers proof for allies in history. 2 narratives clash in the same patch of sea. 10:30 a.m. The closest pass yet. A Chinese cutter barrels ahead, crossing just 500 yards in front of Higgins. Water cannons fire again, not at the destroyer, but at Filipino fishermen caught in between. Spray lashes across their decks as they scramble to escape. Higgins' cameras capture every frame. Officers know these images may one day decide who upheld the law. Every sailor aboard feels the strain. The bridge is silent except for clipped commands. Restraint weighs heavier than action. One wrong move could turn harassment into disaster. Decisions here will echo far beyond the horizon, judged by allies, adversaries, and millions watching. And now, the question passes to you. If you stood on Higgins Bridge, would you hold steady under pressure, or turn away to ease the clash? Comment 1 to stay firm, or 9 to break away. And if you want to see how this confrontation ends, hit subscribe so you won't miss the next move. 11 a.m. Just when it seems the cycle of close passes and horn blasts has settled into a tense rhythm, the situation changes. From behind a Chinese cutter, a RHIB bursts out small, fast, and maneuverable. It speeds across the shoal, heading straight toward Higgins' starboard side. Unlike a destroyer or frigate, this craft darts like a knife, unpredictable in the waves. Its goal is not damage but intimidation, pressing close enough to test nerves. On Higgins Bridge, alarms sound again. Cameras swing and zoom. The commander holds his course. Instead of reacting, the crew falls back on training, drilled endlessly at home. Every sailor knows the sequence. Spot, call, confirm, act. Radar operators call out range. Lookouts scan the sea. The Combat Information Center confirms intent. Only then does the commander decide. His order: stay steady. Weapons tight. Defend only if directly threatened. This is not hesitation. It is discipline. U.S. Navy crews practice this exact problem. Small, fast craft approaching at odd angles, weaving through clutter. Drills repeat until instinctive. Judge distance, angle, and closure in seconds. Training emphasizes restraint because sudden turns can cause collisions and trigger escalation. Composure is the true weapon here. Panic is the enemy. The RHIB cuts close, so near that cameras capture faces on deck. Chinese sailors wave flags and raise cameras of their own. For Beijing, the stunt is propaganda. For Higgins, it is one more entry in the logbook. Another clip of reckless behavior to hand allies and courts. The crew feels the adrenaline surge, but their rhythm holds. Helm, engine, and radar stay steady, synchronized like muscle memory. The commander understands the stakes. A collision could be painted as U.S. aggression. A single shot could ignite a wider crisis. The greater mission is to show consistency, reliability, and control. That lesson is drilled into every sailor. Restraint saves lives not only by preventing fire, but by denying the adversary the pretext they want. 11:45 a.m. The shoal is boiling with tension. Higgins holds steady, but Chinese ships refuse to back down. The Type 052D destroyer reappears on radar, shadowing close on the port side. At the same time, the Jiaotu-class cutter shifts course, boxing Higgins from ahead. For the crew, the meaning is clear. Beijing is testing whether the American ship will flinch. Orders on the bridge are short, clipped, maintain course, helm steady. The deck is silent except for the wind and the churn of engines. Every sailor knows that the smallest mistake here could spark disaster. The rules are firm, weapons tight, fire only in self-defense. Yet each pass is closer, each maneuver sharper. 12 o'clock. The shoal erupts in chaos. The Chinese cutter blasts its water cannons again, forcing another group of Filipino fishermen to scatter. Spray flashes white across the blue sea, washing over decks. A planned frigate swings dangerously close on the starboard side, her hull filling the horizon. The American crew brace, cameras rolling, horns blaring. 5 short blasts echo once more, carried across the water like defiance. At this range, even a steady course feels like a gamble. The Higgins crew know they cannot yield the moment they turn. China claims a win. But one wrong step could end in steel grinding against steel, a collision seen worldwide. The bridge team balances on a razor's edge, holding nerves as steady as the helm. Above, the P-8 Ampere Poseidon circles, relaying the drama live. The MQ-4C streams the unfolding standoff to Pacific Command. Allies are already watching the feeds, waiting to see who bends first. Higgins cannot afford to show weakness. yet cannot afford escalation either. It is a paradox every sailor feels in their bones. 12:15. The closest call yet. The Chinese frigate veers across Higgins's bow at barely 400 yards. The wake crashes hard against the hull, jolting sailors on deck. A heartbeat of silence follows. Then Higgins responds the only way she can, steady, unmoved, unshaken. Discipline holds the line. The climax is not gunfire, but restraint. For the crew, the victory is measured in inches. No collision, no shot fired, no retreat. The cameras have captured everything. Evidence that the US held firm under extreme pressure. The message is clear. Power is not only measured in weapons launched, but in control maintained. And here's where you come in. If you were on that bridge, would you hold steady against the surge or turn aside to avoid disaster? Comment 1 to stand firm, or 9 to yield. And if you want to witness the next clash in this dangerous game, hit subscribe so you won't miss what comes after. 12:30 p.m. The clash eases. One by one, Chinese ships widen the gap, their formations loosening as they drift back toward the shoal. The closest point of approach now stretches past 500 yards. Higgins, still holding her steady course, watches as the cutters and frigates peel away. No collision, no shots fired. The crew exhales in silence, the tension slowly unwinding. Damage checks sweep the decks. Nothing broken, nothing burned, yet the weight lingers. For sailors, the true stress of the day was not in combat, but in the restraint demanded hour after hour. Cameras are offloaded, recordings cataloged. The evidence tells a simple story. China harassed, the US endured, and Filipino fishermen bore the brunt of the pressure. For Washington, the meaning is immediate. Allies see that the US Navy can stand its ground without sparking war. Manila gains proof for its claims, even as its citizens suffer on the water. Beijing shows strength to its audience at home, but the footage also shows reckless aggression abroad. Both sides walk away claiming resolve, but the balance of credibility tips toward those who held steady without breaking. Strategically, the standoff highlights a truth. Deterrence is not always about missiles and guns. Sometimes the stronger message is patience under pressure. By avoiding escalation, Higgins proved that control can outweigh provocation. Yet everyone knows the margin was razor thin. A single error, a slipped helm, a panic turn, an aggressive push could have turned this into a regional crisis. The South China Sea remains contested. Fishermen will return. Chinese cutters will patrol again. US ships will sail the shoal once more. Nothing is settled, and the next encounter could bring a sharper edge. Will China double down with more ships? Will the US alter its tactics? The only certainty is that the cycle is far from over. And here's the final question for you. After seeing how this standoff ended, would you continue holding course in the future, or break away before the danger peaks? Comment 1 to stand firm, or 9 to pull back. And if you want to follow the next confrontation, hit subscribe so you won't miss the coming episode. The South China Sea had been quiet that morning, its waters calm and unbroken. But in a matter of seconds, everything changed. A Chinese Type 052D destroyer, normally cruising at a steady 18 knots, suddenly surged forward. Its engines roared as the ship accelerated to 30 knots in under 90 seconds. This was not a routine maneuver, nor was it the action of an inexperienced crew. It was an intentional order from Beijing itself. Intercept the American warship and force it to back down. The target was the USS Princeton, a Ticonderoga-class cruiser armed with powerful Aegis radar and over 100 vertical launch cells. At the time, the Princeton was carrying out a lawful freedom of navigation patrol in international waters, more than 180 nautical miles away from Chinese territory. These patrols, conducted for decades, ensure that no single nation can claim ownership of global shipping lanes that carry trillions of dollars in trade. Yet this time, Beijing wanted to make a statement, and the destroyer's aggressive sprint was its message. On board the Princeton, radar operators quickly picked up the hostile maneuver. Their calculations showed the Chinese destroyer would enter weapons range in less than 15 minutes. The ship's threat level shifted from moderate to high, and alarms echoed through the corridors. Sailors rushed to their battle stations. This was no drill. But the American crew did not panic. Years of training had prepared them for this exact moment, the collision between provocation and principle. This wasn't just about defending one vessel. It was about upholding the right of all nations to navigate the seas freely. One wrong assumption could trigger disaster, but standing firm could prevent chaos. As the Chinese warship cut across the horizon, tension spread across the entire formation. From the skies above to the depths below, layers of American power began to move into position. The encounter was no longer about two ships. It had become a test of endurance, discipline, and global resolve. The Chinese destroyer cut across the waves with determination, its bow slicing the water like a blade. Its mission was crystal clear: challenge the U.S. Navy's presence, test its response, and pressure Washington into retreat. The order came directly from Beijing: force the Americans to yield without firing a shot. But the ship it approached was no ordinary target. The USS Princeton, a Ticonderoga-class cruiser, was equipped with the Spy 1 radar system, capable of tracking hundreds of targets simultaneously, and 122 vertical launch cells loaded with standard missiles. Every inch of its steel hull was designed for combat. Any miscalculation by the Chinese vessel could lead to instant destruction. Still, the maneuver was more than reckless bravado, it was political theater. Beijing wanted the world to see an American warship turning away. Instead, what followed was a textbook demonstration of U.S. naval superiority. As the destroyer pushed forward, the U.S. Navy raised the alert level across the nearby formation. The order flowed outward to the Nimitz carrier strike group, anchored by the USS Nimitz itself, one of the most powerful floating fortresses ever built. Within seconds, the Cooperative Engagement Capability, or CEC, was activated. This advanced digital network linked every ship and aircraft in the formation, allowing them to share radar and sensor data instantly. What one ship saw, all ships saw. What one radar tracked, every vessel could target. The Chinese destroyer, once speeding toward the Princeton alone, now faced the collective awareness of an entire strike group. It had walked into a trap without even realizing it. The USS Nimitz, flanked by its escorts, the Arleigh Burke-class destroyers USS Chung Hoon and USS Kidd, shifted formation into a protective ring. Each vessel slid seamlessly into position, creating a layered shield around the carrier. Decades of global deployments and relentless drills had refined this choreography into second nature. This wasn't improvisation. It was discipline forged through countless high-pressure scenarios. Inside the combat information centers, American officers calmly monitored the unfolding encounter. Fire control solutions were updated by the second. Surveillance systems recalibrated continuously. Flight decks buzzed with activity, but the atmosphere remained controlled, professional, and precise. The U.S. Navy was preparing for war, but not looking for it. Meanwhile, the Chinese destroyer closed the distance. From its bridge, commanders may have expected panic, perhaps a hasty retreat, or even a reckless shot fired in fear. But the Americans did not move. They stood firm, their ships holding formation, their sensors locked, their weapons ready but silent. This was not hesitation, it was strategy. The U.S. Navy's doctrine has always been clear: prepare for war, but do not fire the first shot unless absolutely necessary. To the world watching, the message was unmistakable. While Beijing relied on sudden aggression and risky proximity, the United States countered with predictability, structure, and overwhelming presence. On international maritime tracking systems, every American move was visible and deliberate. Transparency itself became a weapon showing the difference between authoritarian intimidation and professional restraint. The Chinese destroyer might have been fast, but it was outmatched by the calm precision of its opponent. Minute by minute, the confrontation escalated. The horizon filled with American steel. The air crackled with radar pulses and encrypted communications. It was a battle of nerves, and the U.S. Navy was daring Beijing to take the next step. For nearly 7 hours, the standoff stretched on, tension rising with every passing mile. Yet, as the minutes dragged by, one truth became clear: the United States would not yield, and China was playing a dangerous game it could not win. As the tense naval standoff dragged on, Beijing decided to escalate. From the deck of the aircraft carrier Shandong, J-15 fighter jets screamed into the air, their engines straining as they launched from the ski jump ramp. To the untrained eye, it looked like a dramatic show of strength. But to any experienced observer, it revealed weakness. Unlike American carriers equipped with electromagnetic catapults, the Shandong relies on outdated ski jump technology. This forces J-15 second to launch with reduced fuel and lighter weapons loads. Each takeoff meant shorter range, limited flight time, and fewer missiles in the air. In modern warfare, those limitations are fatal. In contrast, American F/A-18 Super Hornets could launch fully armed, fly longer distances, and extend their missions with mid-air refueling. Supported by E-2D Hawkeye surveillance aircraft, they built a seamless picture of the skies above. What's more, the U.S. Navy didn't just send fighters, it sent EA-18 Graham Growlers, specialized electronic warfare jets designed to blind enemy radars and scramble communications. China had nothing equivalent in the air. The disadvantages for Beijing multiplied. The J-15 itself was based on the aging Russian Su-33 design, heavy and fuel-hungry. Its engines were notorious for unreliability, and its maneuverability fell short against Western aircraft. American pilots, flying combat-tested Super Hornets with advanced APG-79 AESA radars, had every edge in detection, speed, and agility. Because of fuel constraints, Chinese pilots were forced to fly close together in tight formations. That decision, meant to conserve endurance, made them easier to track and even easier to target. From hundreds of miles away, U.S. radars locked onto their signatures. In a real conflict, one well-placed missile could wipe out multiple jets at once. On board the American Strike Group, radar operators calmly tracked every movement. The Hawkeyes relayed data instantly through Link 16, ensuring that the Princeton, the Nimitz, and every escort ship had the same tactical picture. To the Chinese pilots, the sky might have seemed empty. In reality, they were being watched, measured, and boxed in from all directions. The more Beijing tried to project power, the more it exposed its limitations. The J-15 second could not remain in the air long enough to dominate. They could not approach without being detected. They could not maneuver freely without running out of fuel. Every second in the sky drained their advantage further. What began as an attempted show of strength quickly morphed into a quiet humiliation. For every Super Hornet cruising with confidence, a J-15 was struggling to stay airborne. For every American Growler jamming enemy signals, Chinese fighters flew unprotected, vulnerable from takeoff to landing. The battle for the skies was decided without a single missile fired. Presence alone told the story. The United States controlled the air, and China's fighter wing was already on the verge of collapse. The skies above the South China Sea were tense, but the real battle was not fought with missiles or dogfights. It was fought with invisible waves of energy, signals, noise, and digital deception. And in that domain, the United States held an overwhelming advantage. Flying alongside the Super Hornets, the EA-18 Graham Growlers switched on their ALQ-99 jamming pods. Instantly, Chinese radar screens lit up with chaos. Instead of clear images of American aircraft, operators saw ghost signals, false contacts, and flickering targets that seemed to vanish and reappear at random. The logic of their systems began to break down. For the Chinese pilots in their J-15 second, the confusion was even worse. They relied on ground-based radar support from Hainan Island, but those signals were now scrambled beyond recognition. When they looked to their instruments, the readings made little sense. Was that a Super Hornet closing in, or just another phantom created by the Growler's electronic storm? Meanwhile, the U.S. forces were not blinded. Quite the opposite. Through the Link 16 network, every jet and every ship shared the same tactical picture. If a Hawkeye surveillance plane detected a target, that information was instantly relayed to the Princeton, the Nimitz, and every fighter in the air. The result was a unified digital battle space where no American unit ever flew blind. It was as if the entire carrier strike group had fused into one giant organism, seeing, hearing, and reacting as a single body. A threat spotted by one was instantly a threat targeted by all. This level of coordination left the Chinese forces utterly exposed. Analysts would later confirm that for several minutes, radar stations on Hainan Island were effectively disabled. Missiles were fired at false targets. Tracking systems locked onto phantom aircraft that never existed. By the time Chinese operators realized what had happened, it was already too late. Their ability to guide and protect their fighters had been stripped away. In stark contrast, US pilots maneuvered with complete confidence. They knew exactly where the enemy was, how fast they were burning fuel, and how vulnerable they had become. While Chinese forces scrambled to separate fact from fiction, the Americans used deception as a weapon, controlling the pace of the battle without firing a single round. This was more than electronic warfare, it was a display of dominance in the digital era. Where China sought to project power with noise and numbers, the United States countered with precision and information. In modern combat, data is as deadly as firepower, and America had both. The result was inevitable. China's vision of the battlefield blurred into useless static, while the US picture grew sharper with every passing second. Once again, the balance tipped. Without clear eyes in the sky, Beijing could not fight, could not lead, and could not win. While the skies turned against Beijing, an even more dangerous reality unfolded below the surface. Beneath the calm waters of the South China Sea, another contest was already underway, a battle of silence and stealth. And once again, China found itself outmatched. During a recent tracking exercise, a Chinese Type 039 diesel-electric submarine attempted to shadow US movements. At first, its crew believed they were hidden, gliding beneath the waves. But American sonar operators had already detected them. For more than an hour, US forces monitored every move of the submarine without losing contact. The Chinese crew made critical mistakes, turning too sharply, generating excess noise and exposing their position. In submarine warfare, noise is death. If this had been real combat, the outcome would have been swift and brutal. A Mark 48 torpedo, once locked on target, would need just 12 seconds to close the distance. There would have been no escape, no counterattack, only destruction. China's submarine fleet may be large, but its stealth technology lags decades behind. Against the United States' three-dimensional anti-submarine network, numbers offer no protection. From the air, P-8 Poseidon patrol aircraft scan the depths with magnetic anomaly detectors. On the surface, Arleigh Burke-class destroyers deploy advanced sonar arrays and carry helicopters armed with torpedoes. And lurking in the depths, nuclear-powered attack submarines, silent, patient, and lethal prowl choke points like the Luzon Strait and Bashi Channel. Together, these layers form a deadly trap. Even if one sensor misses a target, another will find it. Once located, a submarine's chance of survival approaches zero. The sea becomes not a refuge, but a cage. The ultimate proof came when the USS Virginia, a nuclear-powered attack submarine, carried out a chilling maneuver. After operating undetected for 8 days in contested waters, it surfaced without warning just 6 nautical miles from China's prized carrier Shandong. No missiles were fired, none were needed. The message was louder than any explosion. We were here the entire time, and you never knew it. For Beijing, the humiliation was staggering. A vessel meant to symbolize Chinese naval pride had been stalked in its own backyard, and its defenses had failed to notice. If this had been war, the Shandong could have been sunk before it even launched its fighters. American dominance beneath the waves was undeniable. It wasn't about firepower, it was about invisibility, patience, and control. Naval power is not measured only by the ships that float on the surface, but by the threats an enemy never sees until it is too late. And in that hidden domain, the United States Navy reigned supreme. For nearly 7 hours, the standoff had raged across sea and sky. Yet as the hours wore on, it became clear which side held the advantage. China's fleet, boxed in and overwhelmed, began to falter. In the air, J-15 fighters strained to stay aloft. Their limited fuel reserves drained quickly under constant radar lock from American systems. One by one, they were forced to break formation and return to the Shandong in emergency conditions low on fuel. Barely combat ready, there had been no dogfights, no missiles exchanged. But the invisible battle of endurance was decisive. China's air power blinked first. At sea, the situation was no better. The Princeton, the Nimitz, and their escorts maintained formation with unwavering discipline. Every Chinese radar ping, every maneuver, was tracked and countered. American aircraft patrolled the skies overhead. Submarines stalked silently below, and destroyers sealed the perimeter. The Chinese ships were contained, outmaneuvered, and stripped of initiative. Then, without warning, came the short and telling signal: end of exercise. Officially, it was presented as a planned conclusion, but observers noted the truth. It was an exit strategy, a quiet retreat from a confrontation Beijing no longer controlled. The mighty display of Chinese naval power ended not with fire, but with silence. And that silence spoke volumes. The United States had not fired a single missile, yet achieved complete dominance. Its strategy was restraint, not escalation; precision, not chaos. By relying on structure, training, and technology, the Navy had defended freedom of navigation and reminded the world of its unmatched reach. For China, the encounter was more than a tactical failure. It was a strategic embarrassment. Despite years of investment in warships, propaganda, and regional posturing, its forces had crumbled under sustained pressure. Their fighters burned out, their fleet lost control, their submarines were exposed. The lesson was clear. Raw numbers and bold gestures cannot substitute for discipline, coordination, and true technological superiority. The world was watching, and it did not miss the message. When the United States Navy arrives in force, it does not need to shout. Its silence is often louder than a missile launch. From sky to seabed, America had proven once again that it commands not only the oceans, but the very structure of international order. And so, the confrontation ended with China's retreat. But the deeper lesson endures. In high-stakes conflict, victory does not always belong to the side that strikes first. It belongs to the side that holds steady, that waits, that endures, and then reminds its rival that true power is measured not in aggression, but in control. It's 9:23 local time on the 26th of August 2025. In the South China Sea, the radar screen aboard USS Princeton suddenly lights up with multiple unknown contacts. A sharp alarm pierces through the ship, echoing down steel corridors. Sailors slam doors shut, running to their stations. On deck, the crew of the cruiser braces as messages flash across the fleet network. Possible hostile air launch bearing east. Far out on the horizon, the silhouette of China's carrier Shandong emerges with escorts in tight formation. Its J-15 fighters are already airborne, weaving against the sunlight. At the same moment, underwater sensors hint at something, lurking: a possible Yuan-class submarine. Within seconds, the U.S. strike group stirs alive. USS Nimitz readies her air wing. Destroyers pivot to defensive stations. Above, E-2D Hawkeye circle, relaying everything through the Cooperative Engagement Capability System. One ship's eyes now belong to the entire fleet. Everyone knows, the next few minutes could decide who rules the sea, the sky, and the depths. The South China Sea is not just a label, it's one of the planet's busiest lifelines. Each day, tankers and container ships squeeze through narrow lanes, carrying fuel, food, electronics, and parts that keep homes lit and factories moving. For the United States, the job is simple to say and hard to do. Keep these lanes open. That's why USS Nimitz, Princeton, Changhoon, and Kidd are on station today. Across the water, China sails carrier Shandong with a Type 52D destroyer and escorts. J-15 fly combat air patrol overhead. A Yuan-class submarine likely stalks from below, hunting for gaps. The message is clear. Pressure the U.S. group, unsettle the region, and test how far Washington will go to protect free navigation. Capitals from Tokyo to Manila are watching. For Americans, the stakes go beyond pride. If a convoy is delayed or pushed away, insurance can spike, routes bend, and costs hit families home. If a ship is damaged, investors freeze, and allies question U.S. guarantees. Credibility is a weapon. Losing it could take years to rebuild. So the objective is firm. Show presence, avoid accidental shots, and hold the line with layered defense and clear comms. E-2D Hawkeyes stitch the picture through the cooperative engagement capability, turning separate sensors into one set of eyes. RC-100 Helltail signals. On deck, an MQ-25 rolls to feed the fighters, while a Virginia-class submarine slips ahead to screen the carriers. Every sailor knows the cost of a mistake. A loose call, a missed radar return, or a rash maneuver could light the fuse. This is a contest of will, as much as firepower. Two navies, two visions of who sets the rules here. If you think the US holds control, press 1. If you believe Beijing's push flips the balance, press 9. 9:47 local time. The air grows tense as the first blips multiply across the fleet screens. USS Princeton's combat systems officer calls them out. 12, now 14 inbound fighters. The J-15 from Shandong angled toward the American formation low and fast, launched the air wing. FA-18EF Super Hornets leap from USS Nimitz, followed by stealthy F-35C. An E-2D Hawkeye keeps the picture stitched together, while EA-18G Growlers split off to jam radar modes and data links. Tanking tracks form as an MQ-25 Stingray circles quietly, ready to feed fuel to the first cap sweep. On the surface, USS Kidd and Chung Hoon set their VLS for quick reaction. Princeton takes the net lead through CEC and issues a single rule: weapons tight. The defense web is armed but silent. The point is to deny a shot, not start one. Tubes stay closed, safety's on. In the ether, the Growlers go to work. Noise blankets, the J-15 radars. Deceptive angles smear returns. Pilots hunting for clean locks instead see drifting ghosts. One section climbs to burn through, another drops lower to escape the haze. Both moves cost time and fuel. The F-35C stay cold and patient, letting the jamming do the heavy lifting. High above, an RC-135 rivet joint listens. Each Chinese call, mode change, and workaround is recorded and mapped. Back in Hawaii and Washington, analysts turn the live feed into a playbook. Who leads, who follows, which tactic comes first when the pressure rises. Below, a Virginia-class submarine edges toward the Chinese screen and briefly broaches masts up, hull still hidden by chop just long enough to be noticed. It is a calculated whisper. We are here. Farther out, the suspected Yuan-class sub shifts course and depth, choosing distance over a close pass it cannot control. Picture update. The Hawkeye reports. Multiple groups maneuvering. No weapon. Fighters hold a firm line, fueled by the MQ-25 and guided by the E-2D. After 20 hard minutes, the J-15 begin to blink low fuel warnings. With radar picture degraded and the US screen unbroken, the Chinese packages peel away to the east to tank and reset. The sea is the same, but the mood has changed. The message is received. The US group is ready, connected, and calm, and Beijing will have to try something else. 10:08 local time. The horizon looks calm, but every console hums. Fresh returns bloom, new J-15 groups lifting and fanning wide. The Chinese surface group tightens. A Type 52D slides closer, just inside the US picture, daring a response. USS Nimitz adds speed for quick deck cycles. Princeton shifts a few degrees south to pull the threat across the strongest sensors. Kidd and Chung Hoon widen spacing for crossing coverage, quiet chess moves with big effects. Net check. The E-2D refreshes the composite track over CEC and Link 1-6. F-35C stay mostly passive, watching for tiny course changes that betray intent. Growlers switch techniques, mixing noise and smart deception to warp altitude and speed cues on J-15 scopes. Chinese helicopters lift and run, dipping sonar patterns well outside torpedo range, signaling the undersea fight matters too. The Virginia-class boat has already shifted. Its brief exposure worked. Now it lurks west of Shandong, exactly where escorts hate to look away. A pop-up group appears, fast and low. Princeton calls it, then tightens MCON again. The order holds, weapons tight. Nulka decoys are loaded, chaff and flares ready, but nothing leaves the rails. Discipline over drama. RC-135 rivet joint logs a surge of chatter as controllers juggle fuel and altitude blocks. Jamming steals seconds from every decision. Seconds become miles. Miles become fuel. The J-15 won't have when a merge would matter. On deck, sailors breathe with the scope. The Type 52D shows its bow, then tucks behind its screen. J-15 probe, pull, and reset. Their tracks a restless scribble around the American box. Each probe is met with position, patience, and a harder radar problem. At 10:31, the pattern breaks. Low fuel cautions ripple through the Chinese fighters. The support element sits too far out, timing shaved by the E-2D and Growlers. One by one, J-15 swing east to tank, and the surface group eases back to safer spacing. No missiles, no gunfire, just pressure returned with steadier pressure. If you think the US line held firm here, press 1. If you believe Beijing's push forced the group to blink, press 9. And subscribe to catch the next move. 10:42 local time. The pattern looks set until the sea lifts. A Virginia-class submarine pops to the surface inside visual range of the Chinese screen. Masts up, wake foaming, then slides under in seconds. No hail, no shot, just a shock. Immediate effect. Helicopters claw up and begin tight-dipping sonar orbits. The Type 52D goes active, trading stealth for certainty, and in doing so, makes itself a bright beacon. The E-2D marks bearings. RC-135 crews log every call sign as the screen pivots to guard Shandong's vulnerable flank. Nimitz capitalizes. An MQ-25 extends the fuel ladder. F-35C ease to the edges of the Chinese picture. Quiet and patient. Growlers shift from brute noise to tailored deception that nudges altimeters and airspeeds. Small pushes that waste time. Below, the Virginia doesn't chase. It leaves a hint of presence and fades west. That glimpse alone forces the suspected Yuan-class sub to choose. Press and risk being fixed or yield space. It chooses space. Tubes stay closed. Fire control solutions are built, checked, and held. Up high, J-15 try to reset another probe, but fuel margins are thin again. Tankers sit farther east than planned. Their timing bent by minutes, the jamming shaved away. The surface screen tightens to protect Shandong and loosens its ability to push. The twist isn't a missile or a dogfight. It's a surfacing one audacious move that flips the board without lighting a fuse. The message lands. The U.S. group can threaten sky, sea, and undersea at once, while still refusing the first shot. Beijing must now decide whether escalation helps or only exposes more. 11:02 local time. One last push from the east. New J-15 lift off Shandong in a tight group, while a Type 52D edges forward and helos spread wide. The U.S. box holds shape. Wind over Nimitz's deck builds, launch and recovery cycles tighten to minutes as crews tighten every step. Picture clean. The E-2D calls. Pop-up group, very low. Princeton drags the screen 3 degrees and repeats the rule. Weapons tight. Kidd and Chung-hoon comb the threat axis, creating crossing angles without crossing a line. Hatches clack. Canisters are staged. Safeties stay on. Growlers slide high and offset. Jamming turns surgical false speed cues, bent altitudes, and tiny slips that blur judgment. F-35C stay cold, painting the formation without a broadcast. The Chinese fighters drop lower, hunting cleaner returns and finding clutter and ghosts. Controller calls step on one another, then pause and repeat. RC-135 crews log every hesitation. 11:09. The Type 52D flashes active again, choosing certainty and becoming the easiest thing to find at sea. West of Shandong, a Virginia-class submarine answers with silence and pulls Chinese eyes the wrong way. Stand by decoys, Princeton orders. Nulka lids lift, then stop. On the destroyers, CIWS barrels track and wind, red lights steady. No trigger squeeze. Discipline is the point. Contrails cross, then break. One J-15 climbs to burn through the haze and loses minutes. Another drops to the deck and bleeds fuel. The F-35C shadow and hold. The aim is to deny the shot, not trade one. 11:14. Bingo starting on multiple groups, the Hawkeye reports. Tankers sit farther east than planned. Minutes shaved by jamming tip the balance. The package can probe or recover, but not both. The surface duel becomes posture. The Type 52D shows its bow, then hides again. Kid and Chung-hoon mirror the move. Nimitz turns into the wind. The deck runs like a metronome. 11:18. Low fuel lights win the argument. J-15 peel away in pairs. Nose is east. Helicopters tighten and drift back toward their escorts. The American box doesn't shift an inch. No missiles, no gunfire. Just pressure met with cooler pressure and a message in patience. Access denied today. If restraint won, press 1. If a harder push from Beijing would have cracked the line, press 9 and subscribe for the ending. Result: the Chinese formation eases back. Helicopters tighten around their escorts and the air picture thins. The US group never fires. Beijing's push is spent for today. What mattered wasn't a missile or a dogfight, but timing. Fuel math bent by jamming. A clean picture stitched by the E-2D and a Virginia class sub that forced caution with a glimpse, not a shot. The message at every level. This screen is ready, connected, and patient. For the US, the payoff extends beyond the horizon. Layered defense worked without lighting a fuse. MQ-25 kept fighters topped off. Growlers shaved seconds from Chinese decisions. F-35C watched without broadcasting. The cruiser and destroyers held the line on weapons tight. The group denied access in air, sea, and undersea while refusing escalation rare and noticed in Tokyo and Manila. The takeaway is measured but real. Carriers can still operate in contested water when risk is managed with discipline and data. Insurance desks breathe easier. Shipping schedules hold, and Coast Guards from the Philippines and Vietnam see room to patrol. Credibility, the hardest currency in maritime security, ticks up. For Beijing, today stings. A multi-domain pressure campaign fighters high and low. A surface screen edging forward. A lurking sub met an opponent who didn't blink. Probes burned fuel, not American interceptors. Going active on sonar bought clarity but surrendered initiative. The lone dramatic move came from the other side. A brief surfacing that flipped attention and tempo without a round fired. This doesn't end the contest, it resets it. China can stack shore-based missiles, add tankers, or thicken drone screens. The US can answer with longer jamming loops, tighter refueling ladders, and subs that never show at all. The sea won't stay quiet. Impact. Freedom of navigation holds today, and the region files that away. Next time, the wave could double or arrive with coastal missiles and militia swarms. If you think restraint deterred escalation tonight, press 1. If you believe it invites a sharper test, press 9 and subscribe so you don't miss the next move. It's 5:40 on the 27th of July 2025. In the South China Sea, USS Ronald Reagan catches a hard blip sliding in from the gray. A sharp tone slices the bridge, heads turn. Alarms snap, doors slam, boots hit steel. Watchstanders call bearings and range. Outside, the flight deck wakes handlers, freeze aircraft. Safety nets go up, helicopters sit on alert. Through haze, a low, boxy silhouette grows. A Chinese Type 815-gram spy ship, antennas and domes aimed our way. No shots, no lights, just a steady approach, closing the gap, one cable at a time. The radio cracks. Unidentified vessel. This is warship 76. Alter course now. Silence rides the speakers. The EW team powers up. Antennas sweep to listen, and if needed, to jam electronic noise can blind cameras and radars for moments. The captain's voice stays even. Hold safe distance. Do not escalate. Sailors steady their breathing. Pens hover over logbooks. Waves thump the hull. Every second stretches. One wrong call turns a close pass into a headline. The South China Sea is more than waves and reefs. Each day, thousands of ships cross these lanes with oil, grain, and electronics that keep shelves full worldwide. For the United States, guarding this lifeline falls to the 7th Fleet. Today, that duty rests on USS Ronald Reagan. The mission is simple to say: hard to execute, keeps sea lanes open for all without lighting a fuse. Beijing reads the map differently. It claims broad zones, builds runways and radars on artificial islands, and backs them with Coast Guard cutters and militia. The Type 815 grams intelligence ship pressing close is not merely observing, it is testing nerve. Tall masts and white radomes drink in radar modes, radio calls, and flight deck routines, seeking the carrier's timing, the tone of warnings, and the space she will yield. Washington cannot look away. If the carrier yields, allies doubt American resolve. If it pushes too hard, the standoff can harden into crisis. Either path ripples through the economy. Insurance premiums jump when tankers reroute. Factories slip schedules as parts arrive late. Markets shiver at each headline. For sailors on watch, stakes are immediate. One clipped antenna or garbled call can become a diplomatic incident before sunset. Under UNCLOS, warships enjoy navigation rights, but close shadowing sits in a gray zone. The Reagan replies with calm bridge-to-bridge calls in English and Mandarin, repeats her position, and demands a safe closest point of approach. Electronic warfare crews listen for hostile modes and can flood sensors with noise enough to break a lock without firing. An escort destroyer with an AN divided by SPY-1D radar holds the wider picture. Steel stays silent. Tension climbs. If you think the US must hold firm, press 1. If China is right to push back, press 9 and subscribe so you don't miss the next move. 5:47. The Reagan's radar scope glows with the outline of the Chinese ship holding steady on the port side. The captain orders a new round of warnings broadcast. Unidentified vessel, maintain safe distance. The response is static. No course change, no voice, just silence. That silence is a message of its own. On the flight deck, aircraft handlers freeze movements. F, divided by A-18 seconds that were warming up, remain chained down. A helicopter crew stands by, rotors ready, in case airborne eyes are needed. Inside, combat systems officers track bearings, speeds, and intercept points. Each second is logged, each maneuver is measured. The Chinese ship inches closer 1 mile, then 3/4. Its tall domes tilt toward the carrier, sucking in signals. The Reagan's electronic warfare team makes its first move. A burst of noise is fired across specific frequencies. For a moment, the spy ship's sensors blink. Screens fill with static. Cameras lose sharpness. The jam lasts only seconds, but it is a reminder. America can blind if it chooses. On the bridge, lookouts report. Spy ship altering course slightly. Still closing. The captain nods, then orders escorts to shift. A destroyer slides between the carrier and the spy ship, creating a barrier. Its SPY-1D radar hums at full power, painting a broad picture, while its deck guns train outward, not firing, just visible. Visibility itself is deterrence. The Chinese crew responds in kind. A bright light flashes from their mast, a coded signal. Their ship steadies just inside 1,000 yards, too close for comfort, far enough to argue legality. Over open channel, Mandarin voices call coordinates, implying rights to their waters. The Reagan counters firmly. This is international sea. Maintain separation. Tension builds. The EW team picks up spikes of electronic probing, China testing American responses, mapping which bands trigger noise. Each move is logged for future fights. The US sailors stay sharp. One slip of a dial could look like escalation. The Reagan holds her course. Planes remain grounded. Weapons remain cold. This is an engagement without fire, but not without risk. Each radio call, radar sweep, and silent mile sailed side by side is its own kind of battle. The clash is measured not in missiles, but in nerve. The spy ship holds its position, edging closer with each swell. Sailors aboard the Reagan can see crew on deck, binoculars aimed, cameras rolling. The destroyer escorting the carrier steadies between them, guns silent but ready. Every degree of angle matters now. The Reagan turns slightly, narrowing her profile, making targeting harder. The Chinese vessel adjusts as if mirroring the move. Electronic spikes crackle again. The Reagan's EW crew counters, jamming select frequencies, breaking the rhythm of Chinese collection. The spy ship quickly adapts, shifting bands, showing its crews are trained for this duel. The carrier strike group answers by cycling tactics, never staying predictable. It's a chess game at sea, each move meant to unsettle the other without tipping into combat. On the flight deck, F divided by A, -18 seconds remain parked, but ordnance crews stand by. Inside the combat center, tension is heavier than steel. Voice nets hum as escorts and carrier pass bearings. A single mistake could read as hostile intent. The Chinese vessel tests boundaries, sliding closer again inside 800 yards now. Too near for comfort, close enough that a misstep could mean steel on steel. The Reagan's captain orders steady speed, no sudden changes. The message is clear: we will not be intimidated. Yet restraint has its cost. Every time the carrier holds back, Beijing gathers more confidence, more data. Sailors know they are being measured, how fast they respond, how calm they sound, how steady their hands remain. Lookouts report Chinese crew waving a flag signal asserting territorial waters. The Reagan rejects it with another broadcast. These are international seas. The clash is verbal, electronic, and psychological all at once. For sailors, the hardest part is holding fire when instincts scream otherwise. Pressure mounts. The distance is short, the stakes enormous. One bump could spark headlines, one flare could shift markets. Both crews stare across the water, waiting for the other to blink. If you were on the bridge right now, would you back off to avoid risk, or hold steady to show resolve? Press 1 if you'd match America's stance. Press 9 if you'd mirror China's push, and hit subscribe to follow how this dangerous game unfolds. Then the unexpected shift. At 6:05, radar operators aboard the Reagan pick up new contacts. Small, fast, moving low across the surface, not warships, but drones launched from a nearby support vessel. Smaller, harder to track, built to skim close to the waves. The spy ship wasn't just gathering intelligence, it was baiting the carrier into revealing tactics under pressure. Alarms rise. The Reagan's escorts switch to tighter defense posture. Close-in radar modes lock on the tiny signatures. These drones don't carry heavy missiles, but they can harass, record, and force maneuvers. In a crowded sea lane, that's dangerous enough. The strike group now faces a twist it hadn't expected. Surveillance turning into interference. The captain orders a new layer of defense. A Seahawk helicopter lifts from the deck, sensors hot. From above, the crew gains a better angle on the drones. Data flows back to the combat center, guiding countermeasures and defensive fire. The spy ship holds its shadow, pretending innocence while the drones buzz forward. Its domes spin, hungry for the carrier's every move. The destroyer fire's warning bursts from its deck. Gun splashes rise just ahead. Some peel away, others keep charging. This is the twist. The US cannot fire freely without escalation, yet cannot ignore provocation. Each choice is measured in seconds. Sailors know if they miss here, the next encounter could bring more than drones. Every move is recorded, every reaction judged. The Chinese ship watches closely, learning how the Reagan fights under pressure. The air smells of powder and jet fuel. Every eye is fixed on the horizon. The clash has shifted from silent surveillance to a live test of nerve, and the danger now skims just feet above the waves. The last wave of drones pushes in, closing fast. Radar screens pulse red, alarms echo through the ship. The Seahawk circles above, relaying plots, but the range is now too short for tidy maneuvers. The captain gives the order, engage. A destroyer's deck guns roar. Bright tracers rake the dawn, tearing into the first inbound drone. Fireballs bloom above the waves. Another target darts lower, slipping under the gun arcs. The Reagan answers with close-in defense. Phalanx CIWS spins up, barrels blur, and a torrent of rounds saws the air. The second drone vanishes in a gray fan of spray. Yet one keeps coming. It skims the surface, engine whining, wake knifing toward the bow. Sailors brace, eyes fixed, hands tight on their stations. Hold, hold, the captain says, voice even. At the last moment, CIWS fires again. A wall of tracers slams the drone, ripping it apart barely 100 yards off the ship. Shrapnel hisses into the sea. A hard slap of spray rolls across the flight deck. Damage control teams fan out. No hits, no fires. Flight deck crews sweep for debris. Every bolt matters before jets can move again. Below, operators clear tracks. Confirm no follow-on wave. The Seahawk marks the debris field and climbs, sensors searching for the launch source. Nothing obvious, just clutter, distant hulls, and a quiet horizon that doesn't feel quiet at all. Off the port beam, the Chinese spy ship holds its place, cameras steady, domes turning. It speaks only with posture. The message is simple: we can press you without firing a missile. The Reagan logs everything: radar modes, jam timings, gun cycles, radio calls. These notes will brief pilots, captains, and diplomats. Today's scramble becomes tomorrow's playbook. The carrier strike group resets. Magazines are checked, barrels cooled, bearings confirmed. No one relaxes. The lesson is stark. A swarm of cheap threats can force a billion-dollar ship to spend attention, time, and ammunition. Next time, the swarm could be bigger or paired with a missile shot from shore. The sea looks open, but the space for mistakes has narrowed to inches. This is the climax: raw steel, steady hands, and a rival that measures every heartbeat. If you back the US, firing to hold the line, press 1. If you think China's probing was the smarter play, press 9. And subscribe to see how the next clash unfolds. Result: the Reagan survives, but the message is sharp. The Chinese drones never struck the hull, yet they forced a billion-dollar carrier and her escorts to spend ammunition, burn hours, and expose tactics. For Washington, this proves U.S. defenses work, but also shows how rivals adapt. For Beijing, it's a cheap way to test nerves and collect priceless data. In the wider world, the impact ripples fast. Shipping companies raise premiums, wondering if the sea lanes are still safe. Allies watch closely. Japan, Australia, and the Philippines measure how firmly America holds its ground. If the US falters, partners doubt its shield. If it overreacts, markets tumble. Either way, the balance shifts with every close pass. On board the Reagan, the mood is mixed. Pride for steady hands, tension for what comes next. Sailors write reports, secure systems, and check gear again. The air still carries the smell of powder, a reminder that even without a missile fired, they stood one misstep from crisis. Commanders know the fight was as much about perception as defense. Every radar pulse, every warning call, every burst of fire was recorded, analyzed, and filed into Beijing's growing playbook. For the US, the takeaway is sobering. Cheap tools can bleed time and resources from the strongest fleet. For China, the lesson is that America won't yield easily. This duel of presence is set to repeat again and again until one side miscalculates or decides to push harder. Tonight, the Reagan held fast. The sea stays open for now, but the next wave could be doubled or paired with missiles from shore batteries. The real test is yet to come, and both nations know it. So here's the question for you. Should the US answer every probe with force or play the long game and absorb the pressure? Press 1 if you back America's hard line, press 9 if you think China's shadowing is smarter, and subscribe so you don't miss the next showdown in these contested waters. It's 6:36 local time on the 26th of September 2025. Over the South China Sea, just off Subic Bay, the calm blue turns electric. In the cavernous control room of the USS Ohio, a nuclear-powered guided missile submarine, a hard sonar ping ricochets through the red light. Unknown contact 6, and growing bloom on the screen, stacked in formation and closing fast. Topsides, the tender USS Frank cable snaps to general quarters. Hatches slam. Lines are cast. On the horizon, gray silhouettes resolve into teeth. A Type 055 cruiser, 2 Type 50 2D destroyers, and farther astern the vast shadow of China's brand new carrier, CNS Fujian, running sea trials with her escorts. Alarms howl, orders cut like wire. Battle stations now. Crew move with practice speed, voices drop to whispers. One wrong call turns steel into coffins. The Ohio steadies at periscope depth. The lens lifts. White wakes crisscross the surface. A 8 amperes Poseidon arcs overhead. Radio's alive. Somewhere out there, a foreign radar begins to search, and it finds them. For weeks, tension had been tightening across the South China Sea. China's newest supercarrier, CNS Fujian, slipped out on sea trials, its first big run, with a ring of escorts and fresh radar crews eager to prove themselves. At the same time, under the U.S.-Philippine defense deal, the USS Ohio arrived at Subic Bay with the tender USS Frank Cable standing by. Officially, maintenance and logistics. Unofficially, a reminder that the United States still shows up when the water turns rough. Every shipping lane here is a vein feeding daily life far from these islands. Fuel, grain, electronics. If these routes choke, prices jump, shelves thin out, and allies start asking whether Washington can still keep the sea open. Credibility is not a speech. It's steel in the right place at the right time. That's the burden on the Ohio's crew. Be visible enough to reassure, calm enough not to start a war. As Fujian's screen edged closer, radios clicked into a careful dance. The 8 amperes overhead map tracks and relayed distances. On Chinese decks, cameras pointed back proof for their own audience that US power could be counted and watched. Nobody wanted a spark, but nobody would yield water or face. Strategic signaling cuts both ways. It's deterrence written in hull numbers. Inside Ohio, the commander weighed rules of engagement against the pressure of proximity. Move too bold, and you hand the other side a pretext. Move too soft, and allies read it as retreat. Each choice here echoes in Manila, Tokyo, and Washington. If you sat in that chair, with 6 gray hulls shadowing your path, what would you do? Stay silent or surface? Type 1 to stay deep, type 9 to rise and confront. 7:4 local time. The sea looks calm, but under it, nerves are electric. The USS Ohio glides silent at 120 feet, her sonar array stretched wide. The pings grow faster, each echo sharper, closer. 6 surface ships, Type 0, 5, 5, and 52D destroyers, are tightening formation, sweeping their active sonar like flashlights through fog. In the operations room, the sonar chief whispers, "Range closing 12,000 yards and falling." The captain nods. "Deploy countermeasures slow, passive." Tiny bubbles hiss out, forming a decoy wall behind the submarine. To the untrained ear, it sounds like another sub. To the trained one, it's a dare. Come closer if you're bold. Above, the 8 amperes Poseidon loops back, dropping a string of sonobuoys between Ohio and the Chinese screen. Its sensors flare with acoustic returns confirmation. The planned formation is boxing the US sub in. This isn't coincidence. It's theater politics echoing through sonar. The captain's voice stays calm. Make depth 150. Rig for quiet running. Every valve, every breath becomes deliberate silence. Deeper means safer, but also closer to the thermocline, where sonar bends and hides them. On Chinese decks, sailors line the rails, binoculars fixed on faint American shapes near Subic. Radios crackle. Maintain shadow, no aggression unless fired upon. But one destroyer, Kunming, 172, drifts too far forward, its sonar beam brushes the Ohio's hull. "We're painted, sir." "Copy." Launch the bubble screen. Maintain depth. 8 amperes, mark their bearing. A burst of compressed gas erupts, false targets bloom. The Chinese sonar now sees ghosts. For a heartbeat, confusion reigns. Along the Subic breakwater, Philippine cutters stand still, their crews watching through long lenses, knowing one wrong move could drag everyone in. No shots fired, just ripples of intent. Each move sends a message louder than words. We see you. We're ready. We're not backing off. Inside Ohio, the helmsman takes 2 degrees to port and bleeds speed. The boat slips under the layer, dials dim, voices lower. Sonar taps along the hull like knuckles on a door, the kind that keeps knocking until someone answers. The South China Sea falls silent again, but silence now feels like the loudest sound on Earth. 7:41 local time. The Ohio moves deeper, her hull groaning softly as pressure builds. Outside, the water turns darker, colder, heavier. The sonar screen flickers with new returns, smaller, faster shapes darting between the destroyers. Drones. The Chinese fleet has released unmanned underwater vehicles, weaving through the sea like metallic sharks. Multiple fast movers inbound, bearing 210. The captain leans forward. They're probing us, don't blink. Countermeasure pods hum, ready. Each one can fake the sound of a submarine's heartbeat, but only for a few minutes. On the surface, CNS Fujian cuts speed. Her massive shadow looms like a continent. Two Type 52D destroyers split wide, herding the Ohio towards shallower water toward the coastline, where depth advantage disappears. It's a chess game, and both sides know one wrong move could break the board. Inside the control room, sweat beads on foreheads. The sonar chief calls, "New contact, bearing 185, range 4,000 yards. Signature matches an underwater drone closing fast. Deploy noisemakers. Make turns for 5 knots. Keep it quiet." The drone's ping grows louder, seconds ticking down. Then, silence. It passes overhead, fooled by the decoy. The crew exhales as one. The captain murmurs, "That was too close. They're learning fast." Over radio, the Poseidon reports. 6 vessels maintaining pursuit. No weapons active. "Copy," replies the captain. "They're not here to fire. They're here to see how far we'll bend." High above Subic, the Poseidon tilts its camera downward, catching the faint outline of the Ohio below and 6 Chinese hulls fanning across the horizon. From orbit, it looks like a net tightening around a single dot. A long, low sonar sweep rattles through the hull. Another pulse rolls in from the west, crossing the first and sketching a cage around them. The ocean feels smaller, the silence sharper. Each passing minute feels heavier than the last. The crew knows the drill, but not the ending. If this were your call, would you hold steady or break the encirclement and show force? Type 1 to stay hidden. Type 9 to rise and push back. Comment your choice below and subscribe to stay on the bridge for the next move. 8/9 local time. The ocean is still too still. The USS Ohio runs silent, her crew straining to read faint echoes through the thermocline. Then a new sound cuts through. Fast, shallow, erratic. Not a destroyer, not a drone. Something else. Contact, bearing 085, speed 60 knots. The sonar chief calls. The captain frowns. "Impossible, that's above drone speed." The display flares with ripples, tiny signatures darting just below the surface. Swarm drones, launched from a Type 901 supply ship nearby. Smaller, faster, and programmed to rush anything that moves. Their sonar pulses come in waves, flooding the Ohio sensors and masking the fleet behind them. The captain grips the periscope handles. "They're not searching, they're flushing us out. Recommend counterfire, sir?" Negative. We break stealth, we lose the board. The Pate Ampere's Poseidon above confirms. Multiple drone clusters expanding search pattern. The ocean below turns restless like rain hammering from beneath. Inside the control room, tension spikes. Contact port side impact in 10 seconds. "Hold steady," the captain orders. The crew braces. A muffled explosion booms. The hull shudders, lights flicker. Shockwave ripples through the ship, then silence. Minor concussion. Engineering reports. Hull intact. The captain exhales. They're testing us, seeing how close they can get before we flinch. Above, Fujian's escorts widen formation. What began as shadowing is now entrapment. The sea has changed, no longer open water, but a pressure cage closing in. The Ohio dives deeper, sliding under the thermocline. No missiles, no torpedoes. Just 2 superpowers locked in silence, waiting to see who moves first. 8:47 local time. The Ohio is deep, too deep. Hull plates groan as pressure mounts. The sonar room glows red, filled with the rhythmic pulse of distant engines. They're surrounded now, 6 ships above, drones below, the ocean closing in from every side. Contact bearing 090 closing fast. Another ping, sharper this time. The captain straightens. That's an active sweep, they've locked us. Silence. Then a low rumble ripples through the water. Fujian's escort has fired a training torpedo. Cold run only, but deadly if misread. Evasion pattern Delta! The Ohio tilts sharply. Lights flicker, gravity shifts, crew gripping rails as the submarine dives hard. The torpedo passes overhead, close enough to rattle every bolt. The sonar screen blooms white acoustic chaos. Decoy away! A countermeasure ejects, releasing a plume of gas and metallic shards. The explosion masks the sub's trail. The captain steadies himself, voice low. They're daring us to respond. Up top, CNS Fujian cuts engines. Deck crews rush to stations. Aircraft chained down. Radar tracking below the surface. From the air, the Poseidon circles like a hawk, recording everything. No missiles, no shells. But one false move could turn this drill into the first strike of a war neither side truly wants. Inside the Ohio, oxygen pumps hiss. The crew waits in absolute silence. Range to nearest ship 600 yards. The sonar chief whispers, "Too close. One shift in current could give them away." Metal ticks. Coffee cups quiver. Hands tighten on straps. No one breathes. Somewhere aft, a wrench skitters, then goes still. "Sir," the XO says quietly, "we can surface and show presence, or we can vanish beneath the layer and wait them out." The captain's eyes flick to the depth gauge, then to the glowing red contacts on the screen. Either way, they'll remember this moment. He places a hand on the console. Ahead 1 knot. Keep her steady. The boat glides forward, silent and unseen, sliding beneath the Chinese net like a ghost. The entire crew holds their breath. If you were in command now, knowing one mistake could spark a war, would you rise and confront, or disappear into the deep? Type 1 to stay hidden. Type 9 to surface and face them. Comment your call and subscribe to see who moves first. 9:26 local time. The ocean is quiet again, but it's a fragile quiet like glass stretched thin. The USS Ohio drifts below the thermocline, system steady, crew exhausted but alert. No more pings, no more drones, only the faint hum of the sea pressing in. Above, the Chinese formation holds its line for another hour before easing south. Fujian turns slowly, her deck crews visible through haze. Aircraft chained down after the tense standoff. No victory claimed, no shots fired. Yet everyone on board both sides knows this wasn't just a drill. Surface tracking confirms they're pulling back, says the sonar chief. The captain exhales, rubbing tired eyes. Good. Let them have the surface. We'll keep the deep. He looks around the room, faces pale, sweat drying, adrenaline fading. Log this as completed patrol. But no one feels it's truly over. At Subic Bay, the USS Frank Cable readies to receive Ohio again. The port is quiet, but word spreads fast. Sailors whispering that a single submarine just stared down an entire Chinese task group and came back untouched. To them, it's proof that deterrence still works. To the Chinese fleet, it's proof the US won't back down. Both sides draw the same conclusion. Next time, someone will push harder. In Washington and Beijing, reports spin through encrypted channels, each side declaring composure, each quietly recalculating what red line really means. The world reads headlines about routine exercises. Only those who were down there know how close it came. Inside the Ohio, the crew breaks silence. Laughter mixes with relief, nervous, thin but real. The captain sits back, listening to the hum of machinery and the heartbeat of the ship he trusts more than words. The sea's calm again, he mutters, but not for long. If you were watching from above, would you call this restraint or just the calm before the next storm? Type 1 if you think peace will hold. Type 9 if you believe the clash is inevitable. Comment your call and subscribe to be here when it happens. It's 5:45 a.m. on the 12th of July 2025. In the eastern waters of the Taiwan Strait, the USS Theodore Roosevelt and its escorts suddenly pick up multiple unknown tracks. Alarms blare across the carrier deck. Sailors rush to battle stations. Boots pounding metal floors. Outside, streaks of light tear across the horizon. Chinese DF-26 and DF-21D ballistic missiles already inbound. Seconds later, destroyers detect low-flying YJ-18 cruise missiles and hypersonic YJ-21 seconds launched from bombers. The sky fills with warnings, radios crackle with orders, and every crew member braces for impact. In the Combat Information Center, officers scan glowing screens, calling out ranges and bearing lines. On deck, fire crews stand by, ready for the worst. The roar of jet engines mixes with the thud of defenses spinning up. Below decks, damage control teams stage hoses and foam. Corpsmen prep triage kits. On the bridge, the order is final. Engage. The Taiwan Strait is not just a stretch of water, it's one of the busiest lifelines on the planet. Every day, tankers and container ships pass through, carrying fuel, food, and electronics that keep homes, stores, and factories supplied across the world. On this July morning, the USS Theodore Roosevelt and its carrier strike group patrol the Eastern Corridor. Their mission is clear: keep those routes open, no matter what China throws at them. For Washington, the stakes are immense. If a U.S. carrier is knocked out here, the loss would echo far beyond the Pacific. Insurance costs would skyrocket. Stock markets would wobble. Shelves in American stores could empty as supply lines stall. Allies from Japan to Australia would start questioning whether America can truly protect them. A single missile hit could ripple into billions of dollars and a deep blow to U.S. credibility. Even a short closure would ripple fast. Factories miss parts, ports clog, fuel costs spike, and families feel it at home. For Beijing, this is a test. China has invested in carrier-killer missiles for years, designed to push American ships out of the region without ever needing a full-scale naval clash. By launching now, Beijing signals that it is willing to gamble, betting that mass missile strikes can overwhelm defenses faster than the U.S. can adapt. On the Roosevelt, sailors know this is not an exercise. The crew feels the weight of history as much as the threat of steel. Every radar contact, every launch order could decide not only the fate of their ship, but the security of global trade. And now the question turns to you watching. If you think America's carriers can still hold the line, hit 1 inch the comments. If you believe China's missile storm will eventually break through, press 9. 5:46 a.m. The radar picture hardens. Aboard the USS Theodore Roosevelt, operators mark 3 patterns: high arcs from the mainland, sea skimmers from the east, and a few fast blips that barely hold a track. Ballistic, cruise, hypersonic. Clear skies mean clean guidance for both sides. The escorts act first. Vertical launch cells open, then thunder. SM-6 interceptors leap upward, white trails cutting across dawn. Impact speed does the killing. A second ripple follows. ESSMs fan out low, tuned for missiles that skim the sea. Each shot trades money for minutes and minutes for lives. Explosions pepper the horizon. Some vanish high, others break just above the waves, hissing into foam. Yet the scope stays crowded. For every threat erased, another appears. The formation tightens its network. Ships share tracks and pace salvos so no gap opens. 5:47. The air wing joins. F-35Cs and Super Hornets roar into the sky. EA -18 grams Growlers jam radars, trying to blind seekers. Fighters push toward the H-6 bombers that launched this storm, tossing long-range shots to thin the wave. A tanker edges forward to keep them fueled. Even fuel is part of the fight. Inside the Combat Information Center, voices stack. Track 2-2 inbound fast. New pair at 085. Engage. The captain replies in clipped orders. Damage control teams, stage hoses, and foam. Medics prep triage kits. On the sponsons, CIWS mounts spin. Barrels glinting. Decoys stand ready. A seeker fooled by a few degrees can mean survival. 5:48. Escorts slide a few cables to widen angles. One takes the high arcs, another the beam. Shoot, look, shoot, sets the rhythm. Fresh SM-6 seconds carve mid-course kills. 2 ESSMs swat YJ-18 seconds that slash low across whitecaps. Pilots call splashes. One bomber turns cold. 5:49. The first wave thins but doesn't break. A YJ-18 slips through a seam, hugging the deck. An escort snaps a hard turn and fires a last ESSM, blasting it apart. Debris scuds across the surface. Crews feel the thump and glance at magazine counters. The math is ugly. The enemy reloads ashore. The fleet cannot at sea. The scope pauses, almost calm. Then fresh tracks bloom at the edge. Round 2 is already inbound. 5:50 a.m. The second wave emerges. More tracks fill the scopes, new salvos from the mainland, and another spread from warships farther east. The crew sees the difference immediately. This wave is thicker, faster, and timed to arrive almost together. It's a saturation strike, meant to swamp every layer at once. Escorts shift formation. The Roosevelt turns a few degrees, reducing its profile and tightening the defensive arcs. Keep the wall solid, the captain orders. Launchers cycle again. SM -6 seconds streak upward, ESSMs fan out low, and chaff blooms to create false clouds. Guns spin up to lethal speed, ready to handle what slips through. 5:51. Several drones appear, weaving among the missiles. Cheap, small, and erratic, they force weapons to be spent on them. One destroyer wastes 2 ESSMs before realizing the targets are unmanned decoys. Another drone dives toward the carrier and is ripped apart by CIWS fire. Thousands of rounds turning it to shards. The crew feels the pressure building. Every wasted missile is one less for the real threat. 5:52. A cluster of YJ-18 seconds breaks through at wave top height. The nearest destroyer unleashes its last ESSM battery. 2 missiles detonate in spray. One survives and charges closer. CIWS opens up, the sound like tearing metal. The incoming warhead disintegrates, debris splashing harmlessly short. The deck crew exhales, but only for a moment. 5:53. Hypersonic YJ-21 seconds arrive, faster than reaction time. One slams into an SM -6 inches, a mid-air flash. Another burns through the defenses and streaks past the carrier, missing by sheer luck, gouging the sea with a massive plume. The shockwave rattles the Roosevelt's hull, knocking sailors off their feet. Damage control reports minor flooding, quickly contained. Despite kills stacking up, the math turns grim. Magazine counts run low. The escorts are bleeding interceptors faster than they can hope to replace them. China is betting that quantity beats quality. And for a moment, it looks like the bet might pay. In the Combat Information Center, no one speaks louder than a whisper. Eyes stay on screens, fingers hover over firing keys. The wave is not done, and the line must hold. And here's the question for you. If you believe America's defenses can keep absorbing wave after wave, hit 1-inch the comments. If you think China's sheer numbers will eventually crack the shield, press 9. 5:55 a.m. Just as the crew steadies, the picture shifts again. Operators call out new tracks smaller, faster, hugging the surface so tight they almost vanish from radar. These aren't the big ballistic arcs or the lumbering cruise missiles. This is something different. Swarms of sea-skimming weapons designed to slip beneath the shield. The twist rattles every sailor. Hypersonic strikes are terrifying, but at least they're visible. These new threats hide in the sea clutter, popping up late, leaving almost no time to react. They're in the weeds, one radar tech mutters. The captain doesn't wait. Orders fire out. Bring SIS to max. Load decoys. Stand by for rapid fire. Destroyers shift to flank defense, trying to cover blind spots. SM -6 seconds are nearly useless against such low flyers, so the job falls to ESSMs, CIWS, and sheer maneuvering. Roosevelt heals several degrees, tightening her turn to narrow the angles. The ship groans under the stress, but responds. On deck, the guns track fast, barrels glowing as they rip, bursts into the morning haze. A drone appears first, racing low. Failing CIWS tears it apart, sparks showering into the sea. Seconds later, a pair of sea skimmers charge in. One is caught by an ESSM, detonating in spray. The second keeps coming. The crew holds steady as the carrier itself unleashes its own CIWS, thousands of rounds carving a wall of steel. The missile disappears in an explosion just short of the hull. The twist is clear. China isn't just throwing more missiles, it's changing the playbook, mixing weapons and tactics to break America's rhythm. Each layer of defense is tested in a new way, and the line between survival and disaster narrows with every second. 5:58 a.m. The horizon lights up with the heaviest barrage yet. Hypersonics, cruise missiles, drones, all packed into one final wave. The sky looks crowded, the sea alive with threats. For the Roosevelt Strike Group, this is the knife edge. Final defense, stand by. The order echoes through steel passageways. SM-6 stocks are nearly gone. ESSM launchers cycle on fumes. It comes down to CIWS, point defense missiles, and raw nerve. The first impacts come close. A YJ-21 slams into an interceptor mid-air, scattering burning fragments. Another sea skimmer darts past two ESSMs, only to be shredded by a destroyer CIWS at the last second. The sound is deafening, thousands of rounds ripping air into metal dust. 5:59. A drone dives straight at the Roosevelt. Gunners on deck open fire, tracers cutting bright arcs. The drone bursts into flame and tumbles into the sea, but the distraction costs seconds. Two more missiles close in. One is destroyed by a phalanx burst. The other streaks through smoke, coming head-on for the carrier. "Hold steady," the captain shouts. The Roosevelt heaves as the helm throws a hard turn. CIWS unleashes a desperate stream, metal thundering. At the last instant, the missile detonates just short, the shockwave rocking the hull, spraying seawater across the bow. 6. The last attackers come in pairs. Escorts coordinate, one firing chaff, another unleashing bursts. Pilots above drop flares and push their jets into interception runs. One missile explodes mid-air. Another disintegrates against a hail of gunfire. Slowly, the scopes clear. One by one, the inbound tracks vanish. Silence falls, except for the hiss of radios and the low thrum of engines. Smoke drifts, water steams. The Roosevelt still floats. Her decks are scorched, her escorts drained, but she's alive. Damage reports scroll, scorched paint, dented plating, two arrays offline, yet propulsion and flight ops hold. Flight deck calls green, two F-35Cs trapped for fuel, while crews shove carts forward and reset the launch cycle. The crew knows the fight isn't over. China can reload and return. But for this moment, the US line has not broken. And now, your call. If you think America can keep holding no matter how fierce the storm, hit 1 the comments. If you believe China's waves will eventually break through, press 9. 6:10 a.m. The sea is quiet again, but the silence feels heavy. The Roosevelt Strike Group still floats, scarred yet alive. Deck crews wash away debris. Damage control seals ruptured lines. Medics treat sailors bruised by shockwaves. The ship is bloody, not sunk. For Washington, the result is mixed. America proved it could survive a mass missile strike. Interceptors, electronic warfare, and close-in guns work together, buying just enough time to keep the carrier in the fight. But the cost is harsh. Hundreds of millions in missiles were fired in minutes to stop drones, and warheads worth far less. The imbalance is clear, and Beijing knows it. For Beijing, the lesson is direct. China showed it can push US carriers to the limit, draining magazines in one engagement. Even though the Roosevelt survived, the pressure is relentless. More salvos can be fired ashore. More drones can be built cheaply and hurled forward. The strategy is exhaustion, not just destruction. Allies watch closely. Tokyo, Seoul, Canberra, all track every interception. They see the US line hold, but barely. Questions grow. How many more waves can be endured before cracks open? How long can allies count on carriers to guard sea lanes? Markets react instantly. Oil prices surge, insurance climbs. The global economy feels the ripple from one morning of combat in the Taiwan Strait. Another clash like this, and trade across Asia, could seize up. For the sailors aboard the Roosevelt, the meaning is simpler. They fought, they held, and they lived to see another sunrise. But all know the fight will return, and next time it may come harder, faster, or from a new direction. Result: survival with scars. Impact: proof of US resolve, but also proof of China's reach. The clash is no longer hypothetical, it's real, shaping power in the Pacific. And now, your voice matters. If you think America will keep holding the line, hit 1 inch the comments. If you believe China's waves will tip the balance, press 9, and don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss the next strike. It's 22:45 on the 2nd of October 2025. Near Scarborough Shoal in the South China Sea, the U.S. destroyer USS Dewey snaps to full alert as multiple hostile radar locks spike across its scopes. Sirens hammer, red lights wash the bridge. Sailors rush to stations, hatches slam, boots hit steel. Outside, white spray rips under hard moonlight as the Chinese destroyer Xiamen bears in, only 3 nautical miles away, shadowed by a 54 amperes frigate and 2 Coast Guard cutters. Open channels crackle. Keep your distance, alter course now. Jammers squeal. The tactical net flickers. The Chinese beam stays glued to the Dewey's skin, deliberate and cold. Every second stretches. A Y8Q circles farther out, sniffing for weakness. The helmsman trims a few degrees. The ship's guns come live. Safeties click. No missiles fly, not yet. But the rules are thin tonight. Gray zone hardball. Steel on steel. Radar versus nerves. One stumble, one blinding pulse, and the next sound won't be a warning. It will be metal tearing and water rushing in. The South China Sea isn't just water, it's one of the planet's busiest lifelines. Tankers and box ships cut through narrow lanes day and night, carrying fuel, grain, chips, and phones. If those lanes choke, prices jump at home, shelves thin out, and small businesses feel it first. When the USS Dewey shows the flag here, it isn't protecting a single ship. It's defending the idea that the sea stays open to all. Beijing argues otherwise. Backed by the PLA Navy, the Coast Guard, and swarms of fishing boats, China claims most of this sea as historic waters. Scarborough Shoal, just a ring of coral and sand, has become a floating checkpoint. Every move is logged by satellites, drones, and commanders who know a headline can erupt from a single wrong turn. This week's tension follows Balikatan 2025, the big US-Philippines exercise meant to prove the alliance can move and fight together. Beijing called it provocation. Now 2 Chinese warships, destroyer Xiamen and frigate Huangshan, escort Coast Guard cutters 3,305 and 5,203 near the shoal. Their radar paints the Dewey and her partner, the BRP Jose Rizal. A Y8Q circles wider, hunting for patterns. It's gray zone pressure. No shots, maximum squeeze. For the crews, the stakes are simple. Keep calm, keep distance, keep the channel open. The Dewey must protect freedom of navigation without giving Beijing a pretext. Manila needs proof the alliance is real. Washington needs to show resolve without stumbling into a fight. Every degree of the helm, every radio word, is part of the message. Either way, what happens in the next minutes will echo far beyond this reef. From Manila to Washington to markets you feel at the checkout. You're watching the standoff. Who holds the line? If it's the US, press 1. If China pushes harder, press 9. 22:47. The USS Dewey's radar screen flickers again. 2 Chinese signals are closing fast. One at low altitude, another sweeping wide. Contacts confirmed, bearing 085. The operations officer calls. The bridge tightens. Bring the ship to alert condition 1. The Chinese destroyer Xiamen turns broadside, its fire control radar locking straight onto the Dewey's hull. The shrill tone fills the control room. It's not an attack yet, but it's the digital equivalent of pointing a gun at someone's chest. The Dewey's electronic warfare team scrambles, launching counter-jamming signals to break the lock. Static bursts fill the frequencies. For a moment, the radar tone fades, then snaps back even stronger. Launch Nulka decoys, the captain orders. 2 canisters fire from the ship's stern, releasing metallic clouds that confuse radar and lure sensors away. The crew watches their scopes as false echoes bloom across the screen. The goal: buy time and space. Contact bearing 270, another officer calls. The Philippine frigate Jose Rizal maneuvers in sync, shifting her course to block the Chinese Coast Guard cutters from cutting between the 2 allied ships. Radio chatter switches to short bursts, concise, coded, and tense. Each word carries weight. there's no room for misunderstanding. Overhead, the Y-8Q maritime patrol plane begins electronic jamming of its own. The Dewey's radar display fills with ghost signals, hundreds of dots flickering in and out. The sensors can't tell what's real. "Shift to optical track," the captain shouts. Crew members rush to visual stations, scanning with night scopes for silhouettes against the moonlight. The Chinese frigate Huangshan now joins in. Its deck lights dimmed, radar silent but active in passive mode listening, probing. It's a chess match of frequencies and angles. The Dewey responds with chaff bursts, thin aluminum strands scattering in the air to break radar lines. For now, it's working. Both sides hold their fire. The tension isn't in the missiles, but in the silence between transmissions. One wrong radio call, one false signal, and this gray zone dance could turn into a flashpoint. 22:59. The ocean looks calm, but only on the surface. Beneath that calm, the duel of sensors and human nerves grinds on. The USS Dewey eases 5 degrees starboard, holding a narrow lane between the Shoal and the Chinese line. It's a small turn with a loud message. We're not backing off. Shaman mirrors the move, shaving the distance again. Every time the Dewey shifts, Shaman shadows her beam for beam, wake for wake. The standoff is no longer measured in miles, but in heartbeats. Wind hums through rigging. Metal ticks in the heat. Both bridges know the truth. The next wrong step won't just make news, it could make history. CCG 5203 altering course, intercept vector 205. The Coast Guard cutter angles in, white hull cutting a bright line across the moonlit water. Jose Rizal surges forward, crossing the Chinese bow with a clean, legal arc firm, not reckless. 2 wakes braid together, a warning drawn in white foam. Air horns bellow, brief and sharp. Rules are spoken here with turn angles and engine notes. The Dewey throws chaff again. Thin aluminum glitters down like metallic rain, splitting the ship's radar skin into ghosts. Electronic warfare teams ride the dials by feel, trimming power, shifting frequencies, shaping the ship's silhouette in the ether. For a moment, the hostile lock fades. Then the Y-8Q swings back and the noise wall rises hash on the radio. Snow on the screens, a high whine inside everyone's skull. Hold the line, maintain position. Eyes out, the captain says, voice steady as a metronome. Huangshan creeps closer with lights dimmed. CCG 3305 drifts wide, looking for a pocket to slip through. AIS is dark. Nobody wants this recorded as an admission. The Dewey answers with calm choreography speed to 16 knots, a 2-degree trim, guns to ready, lasers on low power for range finding only. Floodlights stay cold. A spotlight flashes once across the waves. Identify, warn, de-escalate. The crew breathes in sync with the ship. The haze thins. One truth stands out in the clean scope sweep. Shaman inside 2 nautical miles, forward gun train not firing, just speaking in steel. Dewey's mount slews to match. 2 crews, 2 flags, neither blinking. In this grinding stare down, who yields first? Press 1 for the US, 9 for China. 23:14. Just when it seems the standoff has peaked, a new contact flashes on the Dewey's radar. Fast, low, and coming from the north. Unknown track. 30 miles out, speed 600 knots. Not a ship, an aircraft, maybe 2. The bridge falls silent. The air defense team snaps into motion, sensors to full power. Drones launch from the aft deck, rising through the haze. Seconds later, the feed clears 2 Chinese J-16 fighters. Low altitude, afterburners blazing, slicing toward the shoal. Their approach is deliberate. Each jet skims the waterline, engines howling, vapor trailing off the wings. They're not armed for a strike, but their broadcasting presence daring the Dewey to react. Air threat confirmed, the captain says evenly. Weapons tight, no launches without command. The Dewey's radar paints them clearly. Fire control locks wait but never engage. Systems hum, ready yet restrained. White streaks of flares burn across the sky as the fighters climb, roll, then dive again, mock passes meant to rattle nerves. Across the water, Chinese ships tighten their line. Shaman swings broadside, Huangshan edges closer in silence. air, sea, and electronic pressure converge on one point, the Dewey. The destroyer answers with cool precision. Flares and decoys rise, dazzling the horizon. The crew tracks visually, steady under strain. They know this isn't random, it's a rehearsal for the next step, a test of who blinks first under real pressure. When the J-16 finally bank away, the sea goes quiet again. Radar tones fade. Only the hum of turbines and the slow return of breathing remain. No shots fired, but the balance has shifted, and everyone on deck knows it. 23:27. The horizon glows faint and electric as both sides drift into visual range. The Dewey's radar locks tight on Xiamen. The Chinese destroyer answers with its own beam, two invisible crosshairs etched across black water. No one fires. Not yet. Inside, tension hums like current. Every console is manned. Fingers hover above, triggers that could end this in seconds. Weapons ready. Fire only if fired upon, the captain says, calm but clipped. Below decks, the CIWS test spins a short metallic buzz that vibrates through the hull. Outside, waves slam steel. The Jose Rizal keeps close, guns cold but trained. Across the channel, Huangshan runs dark, closing slowly. Between them, bare miles, centuries of mistrust. Spotters whisper bearings. Helm adjusts by degrees. Nobody blinks. Then the Y-8Q jamming hits like a wave. For 3 seconds, Dewey's radar blinds snow on screens, hiss in headsets. When clarity returns, Xiamen has turned 20 degrees port, nose on to the destroyer. Its forward gun lifts a fraction. Targeting change detected, someone shouts. Steady, the captain orders. We do not react first. His tone anchors the room. Every second drags, every breath measured. The ocean feels weightless waiting. Huangshan shifts wider. CCG cutters drift near, bows slicing white scars through the moonlit sea. Pressure builds from air, sea, and spectrum. Dewey responds with posture guns on standby. Lasers low, chaff indexed but silent. Presence without provocation. A coded light flashes from Jose Rizal. Restraint advised. A short VHF call follows, calm and formal. A lifeline of diplomacy in a storm of steel. For one long heartbeat, both sides freeze, locked by tension alone. Then movement breaks it. Xiamen turns first. Its radar tone fades, followed by Huangshan. The Y-8Q banks north, vanishing into cloud. The sea breathes again, wind, engines, and the groan of cooling steel. The Dewey holds station. Guns stay hot but silent. No cheers, no relief, just the slow exhale of sailors who stared over the edge and stepped back in time. Deterrence held, but only by inches. Everyone feels how thin those inches were. Moments like this define more than battles. They define balance, trust, and power. In that final second, who truly won the night? Press 1 if the US held the line. Press 9 if China forced them back. Dawn breaks pale and quiet over Scarborough Shoal. The ocean looks unchanged. But everyone who stood watch through the night knows it isn't. On the Dewey's deck, sailors lean against cold rails, faces drawn but steady. The smell of burned chaff still hangs in the air. No damage, no shots fired, yet the tension lingers, heavy as the humidity. In Washington, the first reports reached the Pentagon before sunrise. Close encounter, no engagement. Diplomats call it measured restraint. In Manila, headlines declare the alliance held firm. But in Beijing, state media praises the PLA Navy for defending sovereignty with discipline. Two versions of the same night, each one claiming victory. For the crews involved, it's simpler. They know how close it came. The margin between peace and disaster was counted in heartbeats. Every radar ping, every turn of the rudder could have tipped it over. And in that razor-thin space, both sides blinked, but only for a second. By midday, the Chinese ships are gone, heading north at cruising speed. The Dewey and Jose Rizal continue their patrol, outwardly calm, inwardly alert. Radios stay quiet, but nobody truly relaxes. Out here, calm is just the pause between storms. Analysts will spend weeks dissecting this night, who yielded first, what signals meant what, and whether this was a test, a warning, or the start of something bigger. What's clear is this: the South China Sea is no longer just about water and reefs. It's about control, perception, and who gets to decide the rules of the next crisis. For the US, it's proof the line can still hold, but only if they're willing to live right on its edge. For China, it's a reminder that pressure works without firing a shot. Both sides walk away claiming discipline. Both know how fragile that balance really is. And you watching this moment unfold, who do you think truly shaped the outcome? If it's the US, press 1. If China set the tone for the next showdown, press 9. It's 14:20 on the 18th of August 2025. In the South China Sea, a U.S. Virginia-class attack submarine erupts from the water inside a Chinese carrier group. Sirens cascade across decks, boots pound steel. Radios crackle in Mandarin and English. On the bridges, officers freeze for a beat as scopes paint a friendly hull where none should exist. Destroyers swing to screen the carriers. Helicopters spin up. Missiles are saved but ready. The sea holds its breath. One wrong move turns shock into shooting, and everyone here knows it. Water sheets off the sail. The American flag snaps wet in the wind. Chinese lookouts shout ranges. Fire control chiefs mark bearings. Captains demand confirmation. Aboard the sub, the bridge team stands exposed, hands visible, while the hull hums and ballast vents hiss. Across the formation, guns track, safeties click, and 100 cameras record history at knife range. Engines idle, fingers hover over triggers, and every ship waits for the order that could start a war. In the South China Sea, shipping lanes stretch for thousands of miles, carrying fuel, food, fiber optics, and the chips inside your phone. A single blockage here raises prices back home and rattles markets abroad. The U.S. Navy sails these waters to keep them open. Chinese warships patrol to claim them. Pilots log close passes. Captains file protests. Each quiet day could flip in a heartbeat. For Washington, the mission is simple but heavy. Keep commerce moving and keep promises to allies. If that slips, insurance spikes, ships reroute, and store shelves thin. For Manila, Tokyo, and Hanoi, American presence means breathing room to trade and fish. For Beijing, pushing U.S. forces back would prove the balance has shifted, that new sensors, quiet subs, and long-range missiles can hold the line without firing a shot. That is why today's shock matters. A Virginia-class submarine surfacing inside a Chinese carrier screen is a message wrapped in spray. We can get here, and you didn't see us coming. It tests nerves, reflexes, and stories each side tells at home. If the sub walks away clean, Washington looks confident and capable. If the Chinese force it down or box it in, Beijing looks steady and in control. No one wants the first shot, but everyone rehearses it. History underlines the risk. Near Okinawa in 2006, a Chinese diesel boat surfaced close to USS Kitty Hawk and stunned observers. Budgets and pride shifted after that. Incidents like these don't stay local. They echo in capitals and on every chart that prices risk at sea. Your take, right now, shapes the debate. If you think the US was right to make this move, press 1-inch the comments. If you believe China will press harder until the next encounter turns lethal, hit 9 and subscribe so you don't miss the moment when this standoff finally breaks. 14:27 minutes after the dramatic surfacing, scopes across the Chinese formation bloom with blips, drones, helicopters, and wave skim echoes. Voices stack on headsets. Officers snap orders. Destroyers wheel outward, building a hard ring around the carriers while radars rake the sea for the American hull. Inside the Virginia, the crew rides the edge. Countermeasures are loaded but held. The sail stays up by design presence, has pressure yet it makes them exposed. Each ping could mark the start. 14:29. Helicopters claw into the humid air, racing low to seed sonobuoys. A dotted line of splashes cages the sub's position. Onboard periscope video catches rotors flashing through haze. The message is obvious. You're tagged. The U.S. answers without firing. A nearby Allied frigate lofts a small surveillance drone, piping full-motion video and emissions data into the battlenet over the horizon. Extra eyes buy seconds, and seconds matter when misunderstandings kill. Chinese-type O-52D destroyers press closer, tubes open, crews in vests braced by rails. The carrier group lengthens its spacing to reduce one-shot risk. A frigate slices past the bow of the American boat, loudspeakers blasting warnings in Mandarin and English. The submarine answers with steady silence and tight helm. 1432. An Arleigh Burke destroyer far to the south locks sensors on the Chinese screen, ready to cover if shots start. A burst of U.S. jamming muddies, targeting radars, and data links fog on demand, forcing manual checks and slowing any fire order. Jamming buys time by reducing weapon accuracy. Plumes puncture the surface. Training charges, not war shots, but close enough to rattle nerves and cameras. Spray sheets over gray decks. The implied line is plain, next time it might not be practice. Still, the submarine refuses to dive. Pumps hiss. The flag snaps in gusts. By standing tall, the boat keeps the initiative. Every Chinese ship must watch it, not the horizon. The ring stretches. Sensors are split between sky, sea, and one stubborn intruder. For now, restraint holds. No missile smoke, no torpedo wake, but radios thrum, bearings update, and the geometry tightens. Everyone here knows this was only the first move, and the board is already shifting. 1438. The first wave passes, but the pressure does not ease. Several Chinese drones slip through gaps in the jamming field, buzzing low above the sea. Their cameras fix on the American submarine, relaying its every move. On board, sailors tense the enemy's eyes are inside the perimeter. A Type 52D destroyer angles hard, launching a helicopter armed with lightweight torpedoes. Its shadow sweeps across the deck of the sub before veering wide, daring the Americans to blink first. The submarine commander resists, holding position but shifting ballast slightly, turning the bow a few degrees to narrow the target profile. Even tiny angles matter when torpedoes can travel faster than sound in water. 1441. Defensive systems aboard a nearby U.S. destroyer roar to life. Phalanx CIWS turrets spin, radar dishes track every drone, and warning bursts of 20 millimeters fire tear into the sky. Shells explode in white arcs, shredding two of the intruders, but others keep circling, relentless. For every drone destroyed, another appears, cheap and expendable. Chinese frigates join the encirclement, pushing closer, searchlights sweeping across the waves as if to blind the submarine crew. The standoff feels tighter by the minute. U.S. sailors grip rails, watching screens flicker with contacts, each dot a potential weapon inbound. 1444. More drones dive low, skimming wavetops. U.S. forces answer with electronic bursts, frying circuits mid-air. Explosions splash down in spray, but still a few make it through, buzzing overhead like angry wasps. The sound gnaws at nerves, constant, unnerving, designed to wear men down before a single shot is fired. Both sides know the truth. If just one drone survives long enough to mark coordinates, a real strike could follow within minutes. That weight drives every decision. The submarine edges toward deeper water, ready to dive if the first missile arcs out of a Chinese tube. The Chinese tighten their screen, determined not to let the Americans slip away without consequence. This is the razor's edge. Who yields, who fires, who miscalculates. And right here, you decide if you think the US should hold steady under pressure. Hit 1 inch the comments. If you believe China's swarm tactics will eventually break through, press 9. Subscribe so you're here when the moment of truth arrives. 1450. Just as US crews think they've stabilized the swarm, new blips appear smaller, faster, hugging the surface like sea skimmers. These aren't the bulky drones already circling. They are kamikaze craft built to overwhelm defenses. Harder to track, harder to kill. Alarms rise again. The submarine commander knows tactics won't hold. He calls for help from an allied destroyer on the edge of the fight. Its deck erupts with launches short-range interceptors designed for speed. Contrails streak upward, meeting the first attackers. Fireballs roll across the horizon, mirrored in the waves. 1452. But the threat is relentless. Dozens more appear, slipping between radar sweeps, darting low, dipping in and out of clutter. The Americans adapt. The submarine tilts, narrowing angles. Nearby escorts swing turrets, laying down belts of fire. Tracers carve arcs of orange across the sea. Even with precise shooting, several drones break through. One slams into the water yards from the hull, a geyser spraying high. Another is shredded at the last second by close-in guns, debris raining across the deck. The message is chilling. The next could hit. 14:55. The commander authorizes a final layer of defense. Portable launchers fire from the destroyer's rails. Shots streak out, knocking 2 drones from the sky. But the pace is exhausting. Every intercept burns thousands. Each attacker costs Beijing far less. It's an asymmetric squeeze, plain for all to see. The twist is clear. The battle has shifted. This is no longer detection, but endurance. Can costly US defenses keep pace with endless cheap strikes, or will volume finally crack the shield? The crew braces as the next wave closes in. 15-2. The last wave surges in. Smaller, faster, tighter in formation. Chinese drones skim feet above the waves, weaving through spray. Radars scream with clutter. Screens blur with overlapping returns. This is the strike meant to break through. The American commander wastes no time. Engage. Close-in weapon systems roar. Gatling barrels spin into a blur, spitting hundreds of rounds each second. Tracers rip across the sea, slicing drones mid-flight. The horizon flashes with fireballs mirrored in dark water. 15 hours, 2 minutes, and 30 seconds. The submarine vents ballast, canting the hull to shrink its profile. A decoy blooms, dragging seekers away. 2 drones veer off and detonate harmlessly. 15-3. Yet one slips past. Sirens blare, crew braces. A streak bears down on the sail. An escort CIWS swivels, firing a deafening burst. Shells connect. The drone explodes yards short, debris clattering off steel. The sub rocks hard, spray crashing over the bow. Another dives low. A shoulder-fired missile arcs from the destroyer's deck, slamming the target in a blinding flash. Cheers echo, but only for a second. The fight isn't over. Every crewman knows one miss equals disaster. 15-4. Damage control teams sweep for shrapnel. A railing bent, paint scorched, a sensor cracked, but the boat is fight capable. Across the ring, a Chinese helo dips sonar, hunting for signs the American will dive. 15-5. The final drone zigzags through tracers. Guns hammer, but it keeps coming. The submarine holds steady. At the last instant, a defensive burst meets it head-on. Explosion. Silence. Smoke drips. The sea is clear. 15-6. The radio net goes still. Then positions shift. A US destroyer slides to cover. Combat air patrol angles in, and the submarine noses toward deeper water. The Chinese screen widens, wary of torpedoes. Helos pacing the edge. Every move dares the other to misread intent. The crew exhales. Adrenaline shakes hands, but the ship stands. The Chinese strike has failed. For now, the Americans own the moment. Now it's your call. If you believe US defenses proved unstoppable, press 1. If you think China's waves nearly cracked the shield, hit 9 and subscribe so you don't miss how this standoff evolves. 15-20. The sea is quiet. Smoke drifts across waves, broken only by the hum of helicopters and destroyers repositioning. The US submarine remains surfaced, battered but unbroken. Its presence alone forced the entire Chinese carrier group into a defensive crouch. The result is tactical but symbolic. No US vessel was lost. No shot from China struck home. Yet the fight revealed the imbalance both sides knew. Beijing can launch cheap systems in waves, while Washington spends thousands for each intercept. Defense works, but at steep cost. For US allies, the survival of the submarine proves America can still stand in the most dangerous waters. Manila, Tokyo, and Canberra see a shield they can lean on, for now. But they also see warning signs. China's tactics are evolving, and clashes are rising. Insurance firms factor risk into shipping rates. Merchants whisper about rerouting. Strategists wonder how long this balance can last. Beijing too finds pride and caution. Its new tools rattled US commanders, proved they could saturate defenses, and showed numbers can test even advanced navies. Yet failure to score a hit will sting. Media may claim victory, but officers know they must refine tactics for the next exchange. For Washington, the lesson is sobering. Every fight forces choices about cost, endurance, and credibility. If swarms can drain magazines and budgets, how will fleets cope when missiles or hypersonics join in? The answer will shape the next decade of naval power. Tonight, the U.S. submarine has held. The sea lanes stay open. Allies breathe easier for now. But all know this was just rehearsal. The next clash could bring more drones, more missiles, or a strike from shore. Crews log damage, bag fragments, and freeze every frame. Tonight's data will rewrite procedures before dawn. Now it's your turn. If you think America proved it can still dominate these waters, press 1. If you believe China's swarm tactics are the future, hit 9. And subscribe, because the next episode will show what happens when the waves double and the first missile finally leaves its tube. It's 9:52 a.m., the 2nd of October 2025. In the western Spratlys, the cruiser USS Princeton rides a choppy, bright sea. Inside CIC, alarms bark, fresh tracks bloom on the scope, racing across the bow. Collision alert, bearing 080. The watch officer snaps. Boots pound, safeties click, hatches slam. Outside, a Chinese Type 52D destroyer lunges ahead at 30 knots, slicing across Princeton's path at knife range. One yaw, and steel meets steel. Flight deck crew freeze. Hands on tie-down chains. The captain grips the bridge wing rail. Voice level. All engines back 1/3. Sound 5 short. Horn blasts rip the air. FA-18 crouch on Ford's deck over the horizon. And E-2D calls the cross on guard. Spray ghosts the bow. Sunlight flares on gray paint, and the gap narrows to seconds. Every eye stares into the white wake. The ocean holds its breath, while two nations test the line between seamanship and a headline nobody wants. Not a shot fired yet. For weeks, tension has been boiling across the South China Sea. Cargo routes that keep global trade alive cut straight through this contested blue expanse. Every freighter here carries fuel, food, chips, and machine parts bound for American stores and factories. Protecting those lines isn't symbolic, it's the plumbing of everyday life. That's why USS Princeton is here. A Grey Guardian riding shotgun for freedom of navigation. One cruiser can't police an ocean, but it can signal resolve, buy time, and anchor a wider team that stretches over the horizon. To the west, the Chinese carrier Shandong cycles J-15 fighters through the haze. To the east, USS Gerald R. Ford holds station with Super Hornets, F-35C, and an E-2D watching the sky. Below, a diesel-electric submarine hunts in patient circles. Above, satellites stare. Space, air, surface, subsurface, the board is full. Beijing calls today a training maneuver. Washington calls the bow cut reckless. Neither captain blinks. Rules of the road mean 5 short blasts and cold professionalism, but pride travels with every wake. On Princeton, sailors tighten straps and keep their voices even. The radar team tracks bearings. The electronic support console logs fresh emissions. The bridge checks engine orders twice. Farther south, Philippine fishermen radio warnings about low-flying jets. In Tokyo and Taipei, staffers refresh ops updates and insurance screens. If this corridor closes, prices jump and shelves thin back home within weeks. America's promise to allies is simple. The sea stays open. China's message is just as simple. We decide who passes and how. That clash is why this quiet day feels loud. If you were standing on that deck right now, whose judgment wins your trust? Type 1 for the U.S. Navy's calm discipline, or 9 for China's raw challenge. 10:07 a.m. The standoff shifts from tension to motion. On USS Princeton's radar, a cluster of echoes flares 3 fast contacts approaching low from the west. They're not missiles, not yet, probably J-15 sweeping in for a close flyover. The commander, CDR James Lowery, doesn't wait. Set condition 1, spin up Aegis. The Combat Information Center hums to life. Screens bloom green, targeting circles lock. Range 15 miles, closing fast. A pause. Shandong Flight Group confirming if negative. The bridge crew goes silent. They've trained this 100 times, but training doesn't come with real faces on the other side. Launch alert birds, Lowry orders. From the forward, two FA-18E Super Hornets roar off the deck, contrails slicing the sky. Outside, the Type 52D destroyer Changsha turns slightly, presenting her broadside her crew lining the rail with cameras and binoculars, recording every reaction. A classic move. Provoke, film, post. The Americans don't bite. Princeton holds steady, speed 15 knots, course unchanged. The goal isn't to win a fight, it's to show control. The kind that unnerves more than any missile. But the sky gets busy. The E-2D Hawkeye reports 2 more radar locks, maybe surface-to-air systems testing Princeton sensors. Maintain MCON, Lowry says. They want you to talk, don't give them the pleasure. Silence becomes its own weapon. The Chinese destroyer flashes signal lights across the waves. U.S. ship, you are in our waters. Princeton answers with a coded light blink that translates to one phrase. Operating in international waters. No anger, no spike in tone, just steady defiance. Minutes stretch. Super Hornets cross overhead, banking low over Changsha in return, keeping legal distance but radiating dominance. Spray flicks across Princeton's bow as the sea tightens. One wrong calculation, one radar lock, and the region could explode before lunch. Then, a ripple beneath the surface faint, almost ignored. Sonar catches it first, a slow-moving contact shadowing both fleets. Lowry exchanges a glance with his sonar chief. Could be a Yuan class, the chief murmurs. Or something else. For now, Princeton holds the line visible, calm, deliberate. In this game, the first to lose patience loses the narrative. 10:34 a.m. The ocean turns glassy, the calm before something bigger. USS Princeton maintains her slow, steady pace, but the sensors say otherwise. Electronic emissions spike across multiple bands. The Type 52D Changsha has gone active, her fire control radar now sweeping wide arcs. It's a statement. We see you, and we're ready. Contact designated hostile track Bravo, Lowry says quietly. No shouting now, just crisp commands. The Aegis system locks in. Countermeasures stand by. Above, the E-2D Hawkeye picks up fresh launches from the Shandong Moor J-15. Armed this time, the radio crackles with encrypted chatter. Princeton's deck crew hustles to clear lines, safety nets snapping into place. One sailor mutters, "This feels different." He's right. Through binoculars, Changsha's crew films again, only this time, they're at battle stations. Gun covers off, missiles angled skyward. The smell of tension carries even across the waves. Princeton stays silent. Bridge lights dimmed. Communications limited to secure bursts with USS Gerald R. Ford. The order: don't escalate, but don't yield an inch. Suddenly, 2 blips split from the main formation fast, low, closing the gap. The Super Hornets roll in, afterburners roaring, forming a visible wall between Princeton and the incoming fighters. For 20 long seconds, both sides hold course. Then, the J-15 peel away mere meters above the waves, throwing spray over the U.S. cruiser's bow. Cameras flash from both decks. It's over in seconds, but the message lingers. Beijing will push, just to see how far Washington blinks. Inside CIC, heart rates spike, but hands stay steady. Maintain posture, Lowry says. If they want to show, we'll give them discipline. That's when the sonar room calls in again, contact growing louder, closer, circling beneath. The Virginia-class submarine North Carolina has slipped into the fight, unseen but very real. Somewhere below, its periscope glides under Changsha's keel. Up top, the crew doesn't know yet, but the balance just shifted. The loudest presence in this ocean is now the one no one can see. Whose nerve do you think breaks first? Hit 1 if you think the US Navy holds the line, or 9 if China dares to cross it. 11:06 a.m. What seemed like a controlled standoff suddenly turns unpredictable. The sonar feed spikes multiple contacts appearing where there should be 1. 2. No. 5 returns. The sonar chief calls out. Could be decoys or more subs. Lowry leans forward, eyes locked on the screen. They're tightening the box. At the same time, Shandong launches another wave, 4 J-15, flying low, scattering flares across the water. It's a distraction, masking movement below. On the surface, Changsha shifts course again, slicing across Princeton's bow at less than 300 yards. The collision alarm wails. "Recommend evasive maneuver," someone shouts. "Negative," Lowry replies. "Hold bearing. Make them blink first." Then, the sea itself moves. A shadow rolls beneath the port side, broad, heavy, deliberate. For a breath, something breaks the surface, then slides under again. "Contact confirmed," sonar reports. "New sub unidentified." The room goes silent. Every man aboard feels it. There's another predator here. Lowry glances at his executive officer. "They're showing us they're not alone out here." A pause. "Fine. Neither are we." Deep below, USS North Carolina shifts from passive to active track, creeping through the thermocline like a ghost. She moves within 6 miles of Shandong, periscope just under the waves. Then a single sonar ping. Soft, deliberately, unmistakable. The echo ripples through the water, bouncing off hulls across both fleets. Above, the sky falls still. No one speaks. For the first time all day, every ship listens to the same sound. A reminder that beneath all the posturing, the real balance of power hides in silence. 11:32 a.m. The standoff reaches its breaking point. On USS Princeton, every console glows red, every order spoken in clipped, steady tones. The Changsha has turned hard to port, circling like a wolf, her radar beams crossing Princeton's hull. The tension is electric, one radar lock away from chaos. "Hostile track now, within 5 miles, reports the Aegis operator. "Recommend defensive posture." Lowry shakes his head. "No weapons free unless fired upon." He knows what that means. Stand firm while the world watches. Overhead, J-15 streak low, sonic booms rolling across the sea. Their contrails slice over Princeton's deck, leaving vapor trails that hang like scars in the sky. The Super Hornets rise to meet them, banking wide, crossing just feet apart. Each pass is a warning wrapped in discipline. Suddenly, the Changsha fires no missile, but a radar burst, blindingly strong, aimed right at Princeton's sensors. "Electronic attack!" yells the EW officer. The EA-18G Growler dives in response, flooding the spectrum with digital noise. Screens flicker, alarms cry, then clarity returns. Princeton still stands. Below the surface, USS North Carolina moves closer, weapons hot. Her torpedo tubes flood quietly. 6 miles ahead, Shandong's escort sub veers off, breaking formation. The ping from earlier wasn't just a signal, it was a line in the sand. One more provocation, and the American sub could end it all in 60 seconds. On the bridge, Lowry grips the rail. "All stations stand by. No one fires without my word." Outside, waves crash, wind howls, and somewhere between discipline and defiance, both sides hold their breath. Then silence. Changsha slows. The radar beam fades. J-15 turn home. Across the horizon, Shandong alters course east, heading away from Princeton's formation. A final horn sequence, 5 short blasts, rolls across the waves, seamanship over spectacle. On Ford, the last Super Hornets trap aboard. On Princeton, damage control logs the event as near miss, no casualties. Cameras stop, pens start. The ocean exhales as if relieved to keep its secrets a little longer. Lowry exhales for the first time in hours. The crew stays silent, stunned but steady. No victory music, no cheers, just the deep hum of the sea reclaiming its quiet. If you had been there, would you have held fire or pulled the trigger first? Type 1 if you'd stay calm like Lowry, or 9 if you'd strike back before it was too late. By sunset, the South China Sea looks calm again. Waves rolling, gulls diving, the horizon painted in gold. But beneath that quiet surface, the memory of what almost happened still hangs heavy. No shots were fired, no ships were lost. Yet the balance of deterrence shifted in a way the world will not forget. Across command centers from Washington to Beijing, analysts replay the footage frame by frame. USS Princeton never flinched. Changsha never fired. But the sight of a Virginia-class submarine surfacing within torpedo range of Shandong has already rewritten the region's calculus. A single image, an American sub breaking the surface behind China's pride, goes viral overnight. Beijing calls it a provocation. The Pentagon calls it proof of presence. For sailors aboard Princeton, it feels stranger than victory. They didn't win a battle, they prevented one. In a war fought with restraint, silence itself was the weapon. The crew logs the date, 02 October 2025, knowing history will record it as the moment deterrence turned visible. On the world stage, allies breathe easier. In Manila, Tokyo, and Taipei, newsrooms replay the clip with relief. The message is clear. America still holds the line, not through firepower alone, but through discipline and control. For China, the image stings a reminder that technology and bravado still bend before experience. Lowry stands on the bridge as night falls, eyes on the fading glow of the horizon. "We showed them we don't have to shout to be heard," he says quietly. The ocean answers only with wind. But the calm won't last forever. New satellites rise, new weapons wait, and the next test may come sooner than anyone expects. So what do you think this moment really proved? Power, patience, or pure luck? Type 1 if you believe the US won through control, or 9 if China will come back stronger next time. It's 6:45 on the 12th of June 2025. Off the coast of Fujian in the Taiwan Strait, the USS Gerald R.W.S. Ford Carrier Strike Group suddenly detects multiple unknown tracks racing in from the west. Alarms blare across the ship. Sailors sprint to battle stations, strapping on helmets and locking down hatches. Outside, faint flashes rise on the horizon. Long-range weapons already inbound from Chinese coastal sites. Within seconds, F-35C fighters launch. Radar scopes bloom with red icons, and layered defenses wake. SM-6, ESSM, RAM, Phalanx. On the flight deck, the E-2D radar spins. A growler taxis, jammers warming up. Deck crews gesture through spray and jet blast as tie-downs snap free. In the combat center, voices stay calm and clipped. General quarters, battle stations. The carrier turns into the wind, steel deck shuddering as engines roar. Somewhere, a silent countdown starts. Intercept time. Seconds draining away. The commander plots what to shoot first and what to hold back. If the math is wrong, the next flash won't be on the horizon. It will be here. White, blinding, and final. The Taiwan Strait is one of the most dangerous flashpoints on Earth. Every day, commercial ships move through these narrow lanes: oil, electronics, food, the lifelines of modern life. For the United States, keeping this passage open is not just about strategy. It's about whether stores back home stay stocked, whether allies still believe in American promises, whether the balance of power tilts toward freedom or coercion. At the center of this mission stands the Gerald R. Ford Strike Group. Its role: guard the sea lanes, deter attacks, and, if necessary, fight through them. China's military, built around anti-access and area denial, believes it can push America out. HQ-9 missile batteries line the coast. J-16 and J-11 fighters fly from hardened bases. Frigates with radars and missile tubes wait near Xiamen and Shantou. To Beijing, every U.S. carrier in the strait is a challenge to its claim. To Washington, every withdrawal is read as weakness. The clash on June 12 was never just about steel. It was about credibility, trust, and the signal each side would send to the world. Insurance rates spike when jets scramble. A closure can idle factories from Seoul to Seattle. The Ford's air wing drills for this squeeze. E-2D spotting, growlers jamming, Super Hornets ready to switch from shield to sword. Allies and rivals are watching. Now the stage is set. A carrier group on one side, coastal defenses and fighters on the other. One mistake could spark escalation far beyond the strait. And here's where I want your take. If you think America's carrier should hold the line, hit 1 inch the comments. If you think China's defenses can break through, press 9. Either way, subscribe so you don't miss the next wave of this showdown. 6:52, June 12. Radar operators aboard USS Higgins and Arleigh Burke destroyer screening the ford call out new contacts fast, climbing inbound. The first wave of Chinese J-16 and J-11 fighters is airborne. At the same moment, streaks rise from the mainland. HQ-9B, long-range surface-to-air missiles, not probing but striking deep. The air defense net around the strike group comes alive. The order is crisp. Engage. SM-6 interceptors arc upward, leaving long white trails. Seconds later, ESSM Block 2 missiles streak off rails, smaller but faster, meant to kill anything that slips through. Ram launchers swivel, waiting for threats closing inside the shield. Each move is rehearsed but deadly serious. One miss, and steel meets fire. In the air, F-35C from the Ford-Fire AIM-120D missiles, their stealth and range tipping the odds. J-16 try to break through with PL-15, but American jets have the first shot advantage. Explosions bloom across the sky, white fireballs marking kills. Radio chatter is clipped. Fox 3 splash one bandit. An EA-18 Grams Growler cuts through static, pouring electronic noise into enemy radars. Chinese frigates try to guide missiles with tracking arrays, but their screens fuzz and blur. Seconds later, Super Hornets roar and low, releasing AGM-88 harm. Trails streak out, hunting radar signals. Moments later, one of the coastal radars near Xiamen goes dark, a fireball blooming where its antenna once stood. The first exchange is brutal but decisive. Nearly all HQ-9 are intercepted. Multiple Chinese fighters fall before they can fire. On board the Ford, sailors grip consoles, tracking every blip that disappears. No cheers, more red icons appear on the horizon. Then comes the counterstrike. From deep beneath the waves, hatches slide open on a Virginia-class submarine. Dozens of Tomahawks burst upward, wings deploying as they arc toward coastal targets. On the destroyers, more launch tubes ignite. In under a minute, over 90 missiles are in the air. Their targets set, radar stations, missile batteries, and supply depots across Fujian and Guangdong. The battle has only begun. The question now isn't whether the strike group survives the first salvo, it's whether China's layered defenses can withstand what's coming back at them. Explosions ripple across the horizon as the first Tomahawks hit. Radar dishes vanish in fire. Missile batteries collapse in rolling blasts. Yet China is far from finished. New signals appear more. Fighters scrambled. More missiles leaving silos hidden deeper inland. The strike group knows the opening exchange is only round one. Several drones slip past the outer screen, low and fast. ESSM intercepts some, but not all. The Ford turns several degrees into the wind, cutting its profile and tightening the angle for defense. On deck, gunners swivel phalanx turrets, barrels spinning. Every sailor understands, if this line fails, nothing stands between them and impact. Radio chatter crackles. Multiple inbound, bearing 095, range 30 miles. Another wave is coming, larger and denser. The Ford's escorts coordinate fire. Higgins locks on with SM-6 seconds. Preble layers ESSMs. Each missile buys seconds, but seconds vanish quickly. In the sky, F-35C duel, with J-16 pushing hard to disrupt the defense. Missiles crisscross, contrails twisting like claws. A single break in coverage could open a hole wide enough for a hit. Below, sailors brace as CIWS guns light up, streams of tracers tearing the sky. One drone explodes, then another, but more follow, diving in pairs. The Growlers jam furiously, trying to blind fire control radars. For a moment, the screen is chaos. Blips vanishing, new ones appearing, decoys mixed with real threats. The stress is brutal, every second stretched thin. Even a small drone can cripple systems if it strikes the right spot. One makes it close, too close. Phalanx spits a torrent of rounds, shredding it 50 yards from the hull. Debris sprays the ocean, fragments rattling the deck. The crew exhales, but only for a beat. Another wave is already forming over the mainland. This is the grind of modern war. Endless waves. Expensive missiles fired to stop cheaper ones. America's technology holds, but pressure mounts with each exchange. Allies watching see both strength and strain. Now it's your call. Should the US defense keep absorbing the storm? Press 1 inch the comments. Or if you think China's relentless waves will finally break through, press 9. Don't forget to subscribe so you're here when the next strike arrives. Just when the strike group steadies, the threat changes. Radar operators call out strange returns, smaller, faster contacts, skimming at wave-top level. They aren't fighters or long-range shots. They're sea-skimming cruise missiles, built to slip under radar and overwhelm defenses. The twist is clear. China has escalated. The command is immediate. Close, in weapons, stand by. Escorts track the low signatures, but reaction time shrinks from minutes to seconds. These missiles ride the Earth's curve, popping up only at the last moment. For sailors, the margin for error is razor thin. Ram launchers fire first, interceptors spiraling to kill the nearest. One detonates in spray, another keeps coming. CIWS turrets scream, tracers slicing across the waves. The roar is deafening, each burst a wall of tungsten. The ship heaves as it maneuvers tighter, turning to narrow the attack angle. On deck, F divided by A, 18 pilots strap in, ready to chase leakers. In the combat center, the tension is suffocating. Nobody blinks, the next seconds decide everything. A Growler tries to jam radars, but these missiles are semi-autonomous. They skim and weave, harder to blind, harder to kill. The Ford faces a risk it hasn't yet. Saturation at low altitude. One missile explodes in the water, the plume drenching sailors. Another erupts mid-air, shredded by CIWS fire. Yet more icons appear, salvos staggered to drain ammo and focus. It's not just about striking the carrier. It's about forcing America to show its limits. Magazines run hot, crews reload at a sprint, no pause. Every second matters. Every shot counts. If even one missile slips past the wall of fire, the world's most advanced carrier could be crippled. The horizon is chaos. Multiple salvos close in, some sea skimming, others diving from altitude. The Ford's defenses are stretched to their limit. Every second feels like the last chance to fire. Engage, engage! Sizz Gun's hammer bursts, lighting the night. Tracers carve the dark sky, a glowing curtain between steel and fire. One missile shatters mid-air. Another detonates in the sea, geyser rocking the deck. But more keep coming. A Ram missile intercepts a low flyer, exploding so close that fragments rain across the water. The ship rattles as sailors grip stations. A drone-sized blip sneaks through. Phalanx whirls, barrels shrieking. The target erupts just yards from the hull. Shockwave slams the carrier, but the deck holds. In the air, F-35 Sea Chase, J-16 trying to launch another volley. Dogfights, flare, missiles streak, radios crackle. Splash one bandit. Two more inbound. Launches and counter-launches blur, each a coin toss between survival and disaster. On the Ford, magazines empty and reload in frantic cycles. Sailors run, sweat stinging eyes, adrenaline masking exhaustion. The smell of cordite hangs heavy, yet the wall holds barely. Then comes the final push. A swarm of low-level missiles races in together, time to overwhelm defenses. Higgins fires SM-6. Preble fires ESSM. The Ford unleashes its last Ram salvo. Guns thunder until barrels glow. One by one, targets vanish. But one keeps coming straight, fast, lethal. The combat center goes silent. Phalanx fires its last burst. Sparks streak, shells rip the night. Impact seems certain until the missile erupts in a fireball, torn apart 50 yards short. Spray drenches the deck. Sailors cheer, some collapsing in relief. The last wave is gone. The horizon clears. Damage control teams stand by below decks, hoses staged and patch kits ready. And E2D calls picture clean. Growlers throttle back, saving jammers for the next round. On the bridge, white-knuckled hands finally ease off the rails. For now, the Ford stands. America proved it can hold under extreme pressure. China showed it can adapt, forcing costly defenses again and again. Now it's your call. If you think America's stand means dominance will last, press 1 inch the comments. If you think China's relentless tactics will tip the balance in the next round, press 9. And subscribe so you don't miss the next fight in this escalating showdown. The guns fall silent. Smoke drifts across the waves, mixed with debris from drones and missiles shattered mid-air. The USS Gerald R. Ford still floats, battered but intact. Its escorts circle close, radar sweeping, crews alert for the next surprise. Against overwhelming odds, the strike group survived. Damage control parties move fast, patching scorched bulkheads and clearing fragments from the deck. Sailors are drained, uniforms soaked in sweat and grime. Yet relief runs through the ship because the carrier remains in the fight. For the US, the message is clear. Layered defense works. SM-6, ESSM, RAM, and CIWS stop salvo after salvo. But the cost is staggering, millions spent to kill weapons that cost far less. It proves the shield can hold, yet it also shows how thin the margin island. For China, the defeat is painful. Over 40 fighters gone, key radar sites destroyed, missile battalions wiped out. The PLA retreats its defenses 200 kilometers inland, surrendering the skies near Fujian. The failure of the anti-access shield shakes Beijing's strategy and its image abroad. The wider world takes note. Shipping lanes reopen, markets steady, and allies breathe easier knowing America can still protect the strait. But they also see the price of modern conflict. Enormous firepower spent in hours, with no guarantee the next battle won't be worse. Result: the US holds the line, but at heavy expense. China suffers a major setback, yet remains capable of adapting. Both sides understand this clash is not the end, it's only a beginning. The next exchange may bring cyber strikes, space weapons, or even larger missile swarms. So here's the question. If you think America's stand proves its dominance will last, press 1 inch the comments. If you believe China's relentless tactics will shift the balance in the next round, press 9. And subscribe so you don't miss how this showdown escalates. It's 10:18 a.m., the 5th of October 2025. South China Sea, 42 nautical miles southwest of Fiery Cross Reef. The U.S. carrier group centered on USS Gerald R. Ford jolts as multiple fire control radars lock on. Alarms echo through steel decks. Red lights flash. Sailors rush to battle stations. On USS Higgins, the helm turns hard to port too late. The Chinese destroyer CNS Lhasa cuts across its bow at less than 200 meters. CIC shouts. Spy-6 shows simulated launches from the reef. SM-6 tubes arm up. Across the water, HQ-9B arrays track back. The open channel crackles. You are entering Chinese waters. We operate in international seas. Overhead, 2F divided by A-18E roar into the sky, while an EA-18G activates jammers. A Triton UAV arcs south, feeding live radar data. The captain's voice is steady. Hold fire. Track and shadow. Spray hits the deck as Ford turns broadside. Every eye fixed on red icons glowing on screen. One wrong call and the Spratlys ignite. The South China Sea is one of the busiest trade routes on Earth. Over a third of global shipping moves through these waters. Every crate, every tanker means fuel, food, or medicine for someone back home. That's why the USS Gerald R. Ford Carrier Group is here. To keep lanes open, to prove the sea stays free. But for China, it's about control and pride. To Beijing, these reefs are its blue homeland. To Washington, they're international waters where no flag rules the waves. At 9.3 degrees north, 111.6 degrees east, the two powers stare each other down. The Ford Spy-6 radar scans the horizon, while the Chinese Type 055 cruiser Dalian drifts closer, sensors humming. Dozens of echoes flicker, training drones, or something more. Each move is a test, each silence a signal. Insurance rates spike when cargo ships divert. A week's delay can ripple into empty shelves back home. Inside Ford's combat center, the air is thick. Officers whisper updates. One screen shows a simulated launch from Fiery Cross Reef. Another displays Chinese fighters circling higher. J-15 patrol the edge. A BZK-005 drone noses in, sniffing emissions. Aegis baseline 10 swords clutter from threats. Tagging decoys in real time, it's the brain keeping chaos in check. The goal for both sides isn't combat, it's dominance without firing a shot. Every radar lock, every warning broadcast pushes the line between deterrence and disaster thinner. For 20 tense minutes, the sea itself feels like a trigger waiting to be pulled. The Ford's crew knows one wrong call could cost hundreds of lives and ignite a war no one wants. If you were on that bridge staring down those warships, would you hold fire or strike first? Tell us below. Press 1 for restraint or 9 for strike. 10:21 a.m. 3 minutes since first contact. The Ford's radar picture fills with fast-moving blips. CIC confirms. Mock launch signatures from Fiery Cross Reef simulated, but dangerously close to the real thing. The destroyer USS Higgins calls, requesting permission to light defensive radar. The captain nods once. Do it. A pulse of energy ripples from the ship's SPY-6 array. Across the water, Chinese radars answer instantly, locking tighter. On screens, red and blue tracks twist in a digital dogfight long before any missile flies. Each ping is a message. We see you. The Ford's flight deck erupts with motion. 2F divided by A-18E, Super Hornets roar down the catapults, followed by an EA-18G Growler trailing a faint electric haze. Angels climbing, offset east, the air boss calls. The jets fan out low over the sea, their sensors scanning for heat trails. They're armed only with training loads, but their presence alone shifts the balance. At 9.3 degrees north, the Chinese cruiser Lhasa pivots, exposing its broadside arrays. A moment later, Dalian transmits a coded burst electronic interference blankets the band. A Triton UAV overhead captures it all, relaying data in real time to Pearl Harbor. Within seconds, analysts 5,000 miles away see the same radar spikes as the crew on deck. Multiple locks detected, the weapons officer reports. Recommend counter-illumination. The captain's reply is calm but final. Activate SM-6 system, no launch authorization. Cylinders along Higgins' deck hum as targeting software kicks in. Across the line, Chinese HQ-9B batteries on the reef ship their dishes in response. The radio chatter is now a storm English, Mandarin, call signs, and warnings overlap into static, unidentified aircraft. This is the People's Liberation Navy. Leave immediately. The U.S. commander answers through clenched teeth. International waters. Lawful operation. For a heartbeat, the sea freezes. Both sides' radars blink from track to engage. A single spark now could light the fuse. Then, silence only waves slapping hulls. The Ford holds position, her escorts forming a defensive ring. Every eye on board knows what this moment means. One slip, one misread signal, and peace burns away in seconds. 10:27 a.m. The sea is deceptively calm, but every ship's sensors are alive and twitching. The Ford's combat systems hum at full readiness. No one speaks above a whisper. Even the air smells of ozone and metal. Then new pings. Dozens of small, fast-moving returns bloom on radar, rushing in from the southwest. Low-level drones, the sensor officer says. Too small for missiles. The captain frowns. They're testing the line. The first wave of Chinese UAV skims the surface, weaving between radar shadows. Higgins launches chaff bursts, thin strips of aluminum scatter in the wind, confusing targeting systems. On Lhasa, jammers scream back, distorting the horizon with false ghosts. For every trick, there's an answer. This is a duel of nerves. Two Super Hornets dive low, their electronic pods lighting up. They lock onto the nearest UAV and trigger simulated strikes, digital kills recorded for analysis later. But the Chinese BZK-005 drones keep coming, relaying real-time images to command posts miles away. Neither side fires a real shot, yet both feel the weight of combat pressing on their chests. Inside the Ford's CIC, tension crackles. Operators monitor hundreds of tracks. One slip could launch a billion-dollar missile at a decoy worth a few thousand. A young sailor mutters, "Sir, how long can we hold this?" The answer, as long as it takes. Then a sharp tone pierces the control room, another radar lock. Closer, sharper. Chinese fighters, J-15, drop altitude to shadow the US jets. Their heat signatures pulse red across the screens. Aegis algorithms flash warnings. Weapons free? One officer whispers. The captain shakes his head. Negative, maintain discipline. On the open channel, a calm but firm voice cuts through static. Foreign aircraft, you are endangering peace in the region. The reply comes tight and controlled. Peace is kept by those who stand their ground. The crew can feel it, the line thinning, the patience fading. Each pilot, each radar operator knows how easy it would be to cross it. If you were in that sky, staring down an enemy jet closing in at full speed, would you stay your hand or pull the trigger? Tell us below. Press 1 for control, or 9 for fire. 10:33 a.m. Just as the standoff seems to plateau, the unexpected happens. The Ford's radar picks up a new wave, larger, faster, flying dangerously low. Not drones, the sensor chief says. These are sea skimmers. The words hit like a shock. Sea skimming targets mean anti-ship missiles or something pretending to be. Alarms flare instantly. The Ford's defensive network shifts posture. Icons on the screen turn red. Identify source. The trace points northwest of Fiery Cross Reef from a Chinese-controlled installation. The command deck goes silent. If this launch is real, impact time is under 90 seconds. Countermeasures on standby, CIC yells. The destroyer Higgins deploys decoys. Ralph Johnson readies its SM-6 interceptors. On the Chinese side, Lhasa and Dalian swing broadside, their guns pivoting east. No one knows who moved first anymore. The growler above floods the area with electronic noise, masking signals. But the incoming contacts keep closing, either a glitch or a live fire test gone wrong. The captain's voice hardens. We're not waiting for confirmation. Bring up close, in defense. Gunners load rounds into the CIWS mounts. The mechanical whine echoes through the hull. Even a single burst at this range could start a war. The Ford's bridge crew hold their breath. A countdown begins. 30 seconds to visual contact. Then one blip vanishes. Another splits in two. The display ripples. The signals were reflections, false returns from atmospheric ducting. No missile, no launch. The danger was real only because both sides believed it. Relief spreads through the ship, but no one celebrates. The silence now feels heavier than the alarm ever did. 10:41 a.m. The relief doesn't last. A sudden surge of noise floods the Ford's radar, hundreds of echoes, too many to classify. It's saturation, the combat officer says. They're jamming everything. Screens flicker between static and red icons. Somewhere beyond the haze, real targets could be moving. The captain's jaw tightens. Switch to optical tracking. Cameras along the hull zoom in two Chinese destroyers closing in. Deck guns slightly elevated, barrels glinting in sunlight. Surface units changing course, CIC reports. Closing to 25 nautical miles. The distance shrinks fast. Ford's escorts shift formation, cutting across her wake to form a shield. Higgins and Ralph Johnson go to general quarters. Their SM-6 batteries armed but locked under command control. On deck, crews secure helicopters and shut down jets to reduce heat signatures. The air feels heavy, static clings to skin. This close, a petty officer mutters, and nobody's shooting? Then it happens. A low rumble from the east, an explosion on the horizon. A plume rises near Lhasa's position. Possible live fire, someone shouts. Within seconds, all ships go to battle mode. Ford's SPY-6 locks onto the plume, tagging it as an unknown splashdown. Was it a warning shot or a misfire? Confirm trajectory, the captain orders. Data floods the screen. The path matches no known missile type. A miscalibrated drone? A drop tank? Nobody can tell. The uncertainty itself is the most dangerous weapon. Sir, Chinese channels report routine training, comm says. The captain exhales. Routine right. His voice carries the weight of disbelief. Above, two Super Hornets return, banking low before landing. On the bridge, the captain stares through the glass, watching Lhasa hold steady at the edge of sight. Damage control teams run quiet checks, as if bracing for a hit that never came. Log keepers note every second. Public Affairs drafts a statement no one wants to read. In the flag plot, a message is typed but not sent. Maintain posture. Avoid escalation. The Ford's crew watches as the Chinese ships turn north, wakes trailing silver under the noon Sunday engines quiet. Hands unclench. Yet no one truly relaxes. Everyone knows how close the world came to crossing the line. Somewhere ashore, cameras on Fiery Cross keep rolling, proof that today's calm lives on borrowed time. 11:05 a.m. The South China Sea drifts back into uneasy quiet. The forge radar clears no new locks, no hostile tracks. The captain finally orders stand down from general quarters. Some sailors lean against bulkheads, exhausted. Others stare at the horizon, still waiting for the sound that never comes. For 20 minutes, they stood on the edge of history, and somehow, it didn't tip. Across the region, news spreads fast. Satellite feeds show both fleets holding position, then slowly parting. Washington issues a protest, calling China's maneuvers reckless and unprofessional. Beijing fires back within the hour, accusing the U.S. of provocation under the guise of freedom of navigation. Neither side admits fault. Both claim victory. At sea, Ford's engineers log thousands of radar spikes, every false target, every electronic signature. Intelligence teams will study them for months, searching for patterns. But for the sailors on deck, data doesn't matter. What stays is the silence, the seconds when the ocean held its breath, waiting to see who would blink first. Allies take note. In Manila and Tokyo, defense staffs replay every maneuver. Insurance desks in Singapore twitch as shipping routes shift. Coast guards from Vietnam to Malaysia warn fishermen to steer wide of Fiery Cross. In war rooms and boardrooms, the same question lingers. If this is peace, what does war look like? Analysts call it a near miss. Diplomats call it restraint. But those aboard know the truth. It was luck, discipline, and fear in equal measure. The lesson is clear. Technology can jam signals, but it can't jam human tension. As Ford turns east toward open sea, her wake trails like a scar across blue water. Radios hum with normal chatter again. Calm returns, thin and temporary. If moments like this decide peace or war, where would you stand? Tell us below. Press 1 for diplomacy or 9 for deterrence. And if you want to see the next standoff unfold, stay with us when it happens. At exactly 6:47 local time, the 23rd of April, 2025, the guided missile destroyer USS William P. Lawrence slid into the northern mouth of the Taiwan Strait. Her automatic identification system flickered on a move that, in these waters, is like walking through a dark alley with your wallet hanging out. The strait is narrow, tense, and crawling with eyes that never blink. Somewhere on the Chinese mainland, less than an hour's flight away, someone was already watching. 53 miles inland, at a PLA Air Force base, a lone radar blip bloomed on a green screen. The operator's hand went straight to the phone. He didn't need to confirm it was Navy Day in China, and an American destroyer had just waltzed in without an invitation. The scramble horn shattered the morning calm. Two J-16 fighter pilots, halfway through their tea, froze for only a heartbeat before bolting. They were already halfway into their flight suits before the echo faded. On the tarmac, ground crews moved with mechanical precision safety pins yanked from missiles. Fuel hoses disconnected, ladders pulled away. Each jet would carry a pair of PL-10 heat-seeking short-range missiles and two PL-15 radar-guided long-range weapons. No anti-ship missiles today, but that wasn't the point. The point was to prove just how close they could get to the Lawrence. Close enough that, if their payload had been different, the ship would already be a smoldering wreck in the waves. Out on the open water, the Lawrence's crew manned their stations. Her Spy 1 radar spun silently, stitching together a perfect, godlike picture of every aircraft, ship, and fishing boat within 250 miles. Somewhere in that vast display, two contacts would soon appear fast, direct, and coming straight for them. By 6:52, both J-16 second were airborne, climbing through 10,000 feet. In each cockpit, the weapons systems officer clicked through an abbreviated checklist. Hydraulics green, navigation aligned, weapons hot. Twin ALWA 31 Farad afterburners pressed the crews into their seats as the fighters arrowed toward the strait. Within seconds, the Type 1475 AESA radar came alive. Its 1,760 transmit-receive modules could steer energy like a scalpel. painting a target while staying almost invisible off-waxes. This was not the spray-une-pray beam of a lighthouse, it was a whispering spotlight. American air crews call it the ghost. You often don't know it's staring until the first warning tone bleeds into your headset. Inside the destroyer's Combat Information Center, comms sounded like clip checklists and steady breathing. The Spy 1 array had tracked the pair for more than 200 miles, but the rules of engagement were simple and unforgiving. Weapons-free only in self-defense. The Aegis network fused every track into a single, seamless picture: civil airliners, fishing junks, patrol craft, and now 2 fast movers angling down the threat axis. The strait itself tightened the vise. At its narrowest, barely 130 kilometers across, the Lawrence was threading a legal needle between territorial claims, every mile compressing reaction time. Altitude, range, bearing the geometry was settling into a confrontation both sides could sketch from muscle memory. The Chinese would press close to prove a point. The Americans would log, shadow, and endure. Across the water, the JA-16 flight lead eased the nose, building speed while his wingman slid wide to set a bracket. Invisible data pulsed between jets and coastal radars. On the Lawrence, coffee cooled in forgotten cups while watchstanders counted down to the moment when dots would become decisions. Inside the destroyer, the SLQ-32 stopped treating the strait as background static. 2 X-band emitters cut through the haze with fighter-grade fingerprints. A watchstander armed the recorders. Every pulse was captured and time-stamped. Calm voices in CIC narrowed to short acknowledgments. The sea was smooth. The spectrum was not. At 7:11, the flight lead made it personal. He rolled inverted at 20,000 feet, put the nose on the plotted ship, then rolled upright and pushed. Altitude became speed. At 500 feet, the air was thick. The AL-31F's drinking hard. 1 lapse here and you don't divert, you crater. His WMD-7 pod steadied on the superstructure. Through haze, he could read hull numbers, distance, closure, and time to minimum separation flickered on his visor like a countdown. Aegis did quiet math. In a shooting war, SM-2 second would work the outer air, ESSMs, the knife fight, and Phalanx the last wall of tungsten. But the rules of engagement were iron, self-defense only. The system knew which VLS doors to crack and which trajectories would guarantee a kill. The doors stayed shut. The ship logged and held course. The pilot knew those envelopes. 3 miles put him inside comfortable SM-2 geometry and well within ESSM. At 1 mile, even that shrank, leaving only the Gatling storm if someone pressed. He wasn't here to fire, he was here to prove he could have while recording every twitch of the destroyer's defenses. 5 miles east, his wingman slid wide and built a bracket. If fire control locked the leader, the second jet would inherit a clean attack azimuth from the beam. Coastal controllers nudged headings for a rear quarter approach. Better video, safer under American ROE. In Sea Search, the wingman saw William P. at B. Lawrence as a 509-foot rectangle pushing 18 knots, wake bright against gray water. If their pylons held YJ-83 second instead of PL series air-to-air, launch would have come from roughly 20 to 30 miles. The missiles would drop to wave skim and pop only in the terminal blink. From that profile, the crew would have seconds, not minutes, once seekers broke the horizon. Today, that math stayed academic. That was the point. The runs began measured, repeatable, designed to stop a breath short of an incident. From a stern, then a beam, the jets held 300 to 500 feet, cameras steady, throttles breathing. On the bridge, mugs rattled. Below, watchstanders logged every sweep, every mode change, every shift in PRF. The dots were now metal and thunder, close enough to shake rails, close enough that a single wrong word on any net could turn a demonstration into a disaster. At 5 miles, the ship's close-in weapon system quietly took notice. Phalanx radar acquired the inbound fighters, tracked them cleanly, and then waited guns cold, safety doctrine firm. On the scopes, the J-16 second flickered from search to track while scan, a focused brush of energy every 2 seconds. Out on the jets, KG-800 jamming pods warmed, ready to flood the bands. but the run stayed dry. This was about proximity, not blinding. The lead pilot steadied at 3 miles astern, wake centered in his HUD. He inched the throttles forward, afterburners lit with twin orange cones. At a mile, he could make out sailors on the flight deck. At half a mile, William P. Lawrence filled the glass. At 1,000 feet, he roared overhead altitude 300 feet, offset slightly to starboard for the camera. The jet wash slapped the superstructure. Rails rattled. Bodies leaned into the artificial gale. On the bridge, the anemometer spiked 95 knots, then back to normal. In CIC, the moment was logged with professional flatness. 7 hours, 11 minutes, and 34 seconds, J-16, altitude 300 foot, lateral separation 50 foot. Aegis had already computed 17 clean ways to kill him. SM-2, ESSM, even the last-ditch wall of tungsten. The rules of engagement chained every option. Self-defense only. The lesson was recorded on both sides. A pattern took shape by 7:23. The fighters alternated runs every 2 minutes, one from astern, one from the beam. They held between 300 and 400 feet low enough to make headlines, high enough to cite safety compliance if anyone asked. Each pass arrived on rails, stable, repeatable, designed to look effortless and feel inevitable. Then came the capabilities display. The lead slowed to 150 knots. Gear up, flaps cracked, sliding into a half-mile parallel on the destroyer's port side. His WMD-7 pod locked on the bridge windows and stayed welded there. The helmet-mounted sight cued PL-10 second wherever he looked. The point wasn't the missile, it was the message. My sensors can hold you the entire time. On the American side, watchstanders captured every frame, every tone, every mode switch. The wingman chose theater. He lined up high, then pushed for a supersonic crossing at 1,000 feet, a clean boom that rippled the sea and thumped through steel. Windows quivered. Coffee jumped in mugs. On deck, heads ducked on instinct and then lifted, work resuming as if on a metronome.